Welcome to today's GameCast broadcast. Today's broadcast is packed with a large variety of unique and original programming that is sure to meet every gamer's entertainment needs, along with some old-fashioned vitamins A and B. You can expect the hottest news of the week, a large variety of opinions, and salt, from GameCast hosts, and some good old-fashioned fun. We have a lot of entertainment in store for you, so grab a Mountain Dew or two and a bag of Doritos, and strap yourself in for the one and only TV for Gamers.
This message not sponsored by Mountain Dew or Doritos. In fact, we wish we were sponsored by those guys. We could in fact be rolling into an admin cash of literal dough. Please, someone out there sponsor the GameCast Entertainment Network. It means a lot to us, pretty please.
Stay tuned for the news hosted by Insert Name Here. Get yourself in the know on all the latest happenings in the gaming world. Be it good, be it bad, be it something that makes me very, very salty.
Hey there, hi there, hello there, internet dwellers, and welcome to another episode of the GC Informer. It's been freezing all week in the UK, and it's finally starting to look a little bit warmer today, so I've taken my jumper off for the first time in days. I am your host, Orange Lightning, and let's get right into some cheeky stories. So something that's been jumping about a lot this week is the announcement of the new Overwatch hero Bridget, the daughter of, I can't say his name, Torbjorn, and goddaughter of Reinhardt, to join the ranks as a sort of tank support class, which actually sounds pretty decent because I like supporting and I like smashing people in the face. So however, in an interesting turn of events, the president of Paladins, the popular free-to-play hero arena style game, is coming out and saying that Bridget, well, looks cool, looks like a rip-off of one of their characters, Ashe. Yes, Stuart Chisholm has taken to Twitter and basically just posted a picture of Ashe and Bridget side by side and said, quick poll, if I happen to notice and point out any similarities between these two characters, would that make me the pot calling the kettle black or the kettle calling the pot black? This will keep me up all night unless I get a clear answer. And arguably the similarities are there no matter which team you support more, Team Paladins or Team Overwatch. They are pretty similar in character. They both have some very beefy knightly armor, so appearance-wise they do look similar already. But you can't just judge on appearance, right? Well, their abilities are relatively close as well. Ashe has a shoulder bash and Bridget has a shield bash. Ashe has siege shield and Bridget has barrier shield. And both of them have an ultimate, which is kind of a rallying the team AoE. So, obviously it's arguable that Bridget is representative of Reinhardt because of her relationship with him, so... But either way, I do think that Paladins does have a little bit of a point, and after all the times that they've been accused of copying Overwatch, maybe it's kind of nice that it's the other way around. They should just take it as a compliment and Sticking with the fighting theme, another popular free game, Brawlhalla, has been bought by Ubisoft. A really nice little game in the style of Smash Brothers, where you have your set arena and a group of characters trying to knock each other off of the platforms, and a really solid character roster actually. Brawlhalla has been gaining in popularity for a little while, and is really boosted in the esports genre as well. I've watched a few tournaments on Twitch. It's quite addictive because matches can be really fast. But yes, Ubisoft have acquired Blue Mammoth, a 21-person outfit in Atlanta, because they believe it to be the most played game on Steam and among the top free-to-play games on PS4. The Ubisoft executive Laurent Detoc, I'm probably saying all these names wrong, followed this with a statement saying along the lines of, the Blue Mammoth Games team are experts at developing and running scalable competitive multiplayer games, and they will be a great addition to the Ubisoft network of studios. So who knows what Ubisoft have planned for Blue Mammoth? Hopefully it won't detract from Brawlhalla, or hopefully it won't change Brawlhalla, because I know a reason why it's so popular is because of the way it is. You can buy your hero that you like the best, otherwise you just have to stick to the rota, or you can sink, I think it's about £15, and just buy the entire roster of characters. So it works, it's a nice little system, and yeah, we'll see, watch this space. And Humble Bundle have announced their new monthly. February's is done and dusted, so you can go and get your February games now. And already it looks quite hefty, to be honest. They've announced 3 games, again, like they did earlier in, I think at the end of last year actually. So you get 3 games that you would get straight away, and that's Deus Ex Mankind Divided, God Eater 2 Rage Burst, and Mafia 3, along with the DLC Sign of the Times. I do enjoy my Humble subscription. I hardly ever play any of the games that I get through it because I have too many games forever, but I think this is a pretty decent start. So you have until the 6th of April to subscribe to Humble Bundle to get these games, and then a few more at the end. It's $12. It's worth it if you don't already have these games. And they have now started doing a second game release nearer to the date when all of the bundle is released, such was Overgrowth last month, so look forward to that as well. Our headline story for today, something that I consider old news but is always becoming new news, is the forever question of video games creating violence in children. Are they responsible? Are they to blame? The reason this has come up again is because good old USA President Trump has decided that he wants to have a meeting with some key members of the video game industry. Who they are is anyone's guess, to discuss video game ratings and how they can change them to have a better effect for children, because they are rotting kids' minds and they are making them violent. The reason this has come into the limelight is because of the recent school shooting in Florida, which was absolutely terrible. And obviously this has met a massive backlash because Trump is now pointing the finger at video games and movies and once again the entertainment industry, as is always blamed. But something that has come out of this as well, which is also super interesting, is that naturally everyone has assumed that invited to this amazing meeting of video game minds would be the Entertainment Software Association, the ESA, who are the ones responsible for the certificates and general rankings and warnings that need to be given to games in the first place. You may remember them as they're the ones who were looking into loot boxes recently. Well, they've not been invited, which is a very strange decision considering that supposedly one of the whole purposes of this meeting is to discuss ratings and if they are working, which is kind of their job. But definitely all credit to the ESA. I don't know if it's just because they're a bit burned because they're not invited, but they have been one of the ones to come out and say video games are shockingly global. They are not just in the USA. There are no specific super violent games that only Americans can play. They are everywhere. And yet, how many school shootings do you get across the world in other countries? Because shockingly, we don't all have a gun. So naturally, the entertainment industry, video game developers and publishers have already shown their displeasure with this accusation. How many times is this going to happen? There have been people as well on the internet who have suggested, you know what, maybe you should ban them, and we bet you that the violence will still happen and the shootings will still happen. Then who are you going to blame? You're going to have to do something about the gun control. It's games, not all games. Not every game has a gun, not every game is violent. Journey, for example, is a great game that everyone should play. It only takes an hour. That you can't even attack. Attacking is not a thing. And I'm pretty sure it's the same in Inside. I don't know. How many times will this keep coming up? It's an easy target. Bah! But it's not all doom and gloom. I'm gonna end this on a happy story. The Nintendo Switch, everyone, is a year old. It has had its birthday, and what a year it has been. The Switch has blown expectations out of the water. Granted, I think a lot of people will admit that their expectations had been between shaky and low after the Wii U kind of crashed and burned before it had risen, and it's been explosive. The Switch has taken everyone by a huge surprise, and it's been fantastic, quite frankly. Well done, Nintendo. You did it. You came back. Everyone was scared that you were dropping off the map, but you nailed yourself back into the running. And what can I say? I have one. It's brilliant. I love it. I have a horrible commute to work, so perfect. Of course, this does leave people a little worried. Have Nintendo put all of their eggs in one basket, as in 2017? You know, we had Zelda, we had Mario, we had a new IP in ARMS, Splatoon 2. There was a big raft of great games to come out in 2017. It is a little concerning that so far we don't seem to have anything on the horizon just yet. I mean, I know we know about Metroid 4 and there's a Pokemon game and Project Octopath Traveler. There are things around, but not any solid dates or much more information about them. I mean, I'm looking forward to Hyrule Warriors because I loved that game on the Wii U and I'm totally going to play it again on the Switch. It's just the beauty of having all these games on the go. They've nailed it. Something that they've been trying to do for a while with handheld consoles, something that Sony have dipped their toes into, but Nintendo, they got it. They got it down this time. It works. It's great. And yeah, well done, guys. Great year. Let's hope that 2018 has a good one too, and we look forward to more from Nintendo. And that does it for today, so thank you so much for joining me for this news episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave comments, let us know what you think. What do you think about violence in video games being the cause of violence in the world? And hey, do you have a Switch? Do you want one? Stay tuned to GameCast for more awesome gaming content all the time, every time. And hey, if you fancy doing this yourself, drop us a note, give us a line. We'd be happy to have you on board. So thanks again, enjoy your weekends, and I'll see you all again real soon. Take care for now. Bye!
The GameCast Discord is the hub of the small world that is GameCast. It's a thriving community filled with gamers, GameCast personalities, and other miscellaneous people we somehow keep picking up along the way. We really don't know how to get rid of them. Not only will it keep you up to date and in the know on all things GameCast, but you will also find weekly gaming events, streams, and of course, a very salty Count Fracula, now also available in a low-sodium alternative. Coming up next, Game Changer. Explore the many weird and awesome ways you could be playing your favorite games. Hacks, mods, challenges, and glitches. Game Changer and your host Alex are sure to have it all.
What's up everyone, Alex here and welcome back to Game Changer. This is where we explore weird and awesome ways to play games. Today we are looking at a Banjo-Kazooie level editor called Banjo's Backpack, so let's get right into that. This is a level editor for Banjo-Kazooie where the user can build their own stages with unique animations, camera control, and objects. Not only am I going to be covering the editor, but I also wanted to cover an awesome game that I saw that was built using this editor. The editor comes with these features. It has a model importer so you can import object files from a modeling software like Blender. There's camera mode, which is where you can set up a camera for events such as cutscenes. There's path mode, so that you can create paths for objects to travel along. And there is the animation viewer, and this is how you view models and animations for most of the characters and objects that are in the game. There was actually an entire game created using this editor, and it's called Banjo-Kazooie Returns. It has all new levels, it's got all the collectibles such as the notes and the jigsaw pieces, and all of the levels are different. They've got a different theme to them, sort of like the original Banjo-Kazooie. It also has all new music, so if you can, go check that out. It was created by Super Zambezi on YouTube. They're also on Twitter, usually posting about projects that they're working on, so go check that out. What I liked about the level editor is that it has an easy interface and it's user-friendly. There's simple ways to build stages, and it's also free, which is super awesome. There's some amazing stages and games that have been created just using this software. I recommend going to check that out. It's awesome. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more content like this, go check out the GameCast channel and see what we're doing over there. We've got news, reviews, podcasts, let's plays. We're doing some awesome stuff. Consider subscribing, and I am signing off for now. See you later.
Follow GameCast on Twitter. Not only is it a handy space that keeps you in the GameCast know, but it allows for you to share with us what's piquing your interest in the gaming world, and ultimately aids us in staying in the know of what interests you, our fellow gamers and fans. The GameCast Twitter has been referred to as a shotgun to the face of tweets and content. We will be very
disappointed if you don't retaliate in kind.
Stay tuned for the Newscast, the show where the GC and Informa hosts are format-free, off-script, and, at times, out of their minds. Join them as they dive deep into the current events of the gaming world.
Warning, may contain high levels of salt. GameCast is not accountable for any health issues linked to salt exposure or consumption.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the GC...
Nope.
Gamecast Newscast. Fuck off. Had to drive in the snow today. I'm not feeling this. Oh, God. I am Snowy, otherwise known as Count Fracula. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Max.
Hello, everyone.
And today...
It's been a slow news week.
It's been a very slow news week. Incredibly slow, in fact. So we're just going to go through a couple of things, have a nice chilled out podcast, and then we'll leave it at that, I think.
I'd say so.
So, Max, what have you been playing this week?
This week, nothing. I've been playing Dead Cells during the show to calm myself down. So that, and Dead Cells is great. They're on update 5. They're still in early access, but honestly, this game is way further along than like majority of finished games out there. There's just so much content to do. I've still never even beaten it, and I'm at like 64 hours in.
Oh, jeez, wow.
It's so difficult. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I'm the best at this game. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the weapons I like aren't the best weapons to use or something like that. I don't know. But
maybe.
I'm always enjoying it regardless.
Fair enough.
Yes.
To be fair, I've played a good 20, 30 hours of FTL faster than light. I've never completed that.
Ooh, that game's awesome.
That is a good game.
It's hard as shit as well.
It is. This week, I've been playing Pokemon Ruby still.
Oh, nice.
I'm currently in the process of trying to catch a Feebas, which is just the worst thing in the world. And not only that, I caught a shiny Carvana yesterday.
Oh, nice. That's dope.
Yes. Just found it in a pond. So yeah, it's a good game. Still holds up. I love it. Yeah. That's about it. That's all I've really played this week. I've played about as much of a Hat in Time as I want to. I've got basically everything I want out of that at this point.
Okay. Did you enjoy it?
It's a good game. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I might just... I've not done the final boss, so I might finish that.
Yes. Of course.
Yeah, I don't
do the
play
final
games
boss.
like you.
No, that's not playing games like me. That's just finishing the fucking game.
Right, Mom, I'll do the final boss. Jeez. So yeah, that's a thing. It's a good game. It's definitely worth the money. I'm glad I bought it and played it. It's adorable. So yeah, that's what I've been playing this week. One of the best JRPGs of all time, Chrono Trigger.
May have heard of it.
Yeah, you may have heard of it. I've not played it myself. I want to. But
Same.
yeah, it's never had a PC release until this last week, just gone, until the 27th of February this year. And
Completely out of the blue.
yeah, completely just sort of go, hey, you can put Chrono Trigger on Steam. What? Oh, okay, that's a
Cool.
thing. Yeah.
And the internet freaked out for a collective 5 minutes, and then they freaked out for a different reason.
Yes, because they realised what had actually happened. There's several versions of Chrono Trigger. There was the original version on the SNES. There was the PlayStation 1 version, which was slightly different in whatever way. There was the remastered Nintendo DS version. And I think there was another version and a mobile version. Now, out of all those versions, I'd say I'd take either the original or the DS remastered version on PC. Those seem to be good choices to port over. Square Enix disagree, though, because they ported over the mobile version. In a bizarre... What? That's... What? I don't understand. I'm going to look up as well very quickly how much the mobile version is.
It was also $15, I believe.
Really?
Because I looked at it when Mark and I were talking about it last week, and I am 99% sure it was $15.
It's $15 or £10. So actually, it's more expensive for me on Steam than it is on mobile. Wow.
I guess that makes sense.
No, it
Especially
doesn't,
'cause
because it's the
like
same
a
fucking
quote-unquote
version.
New port. It's a port.
No, it's... No.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Oh, no, it's 10. It's 10 on mobile, too, here.
Oh. Brexit!
It's an upgraded version, it says.
Uh-huh.
Whatever the hell that means.
Yeah. So, I mean... What? I genuinely don't know what possessed Square Enix to do this, to be honest.
I mean, I understand why they ported it over to PC. You know, that was a great idea. They've been doing it with a lot of their games. But
of all the versions to pick...
Yeah. Well, they did this with Final Fantasy VI as well. I own it, and I've been playing through it very slowly over the past year. Let me tell you, the UI is fucking horrendous because it's that shit mobile. Like, I don't know. It's not even good on mobile. Like, it's functional, and it's there for people with, like, super big thumbs, but visually it's terrible. And on PC, there's literally no reason for it whatsoever. It's entirely... There's no point. That's just laziness at this point. And from what I've read, I don't know if this is in the mobile version as well, but on the PC version, there's also like this weird like kind of haze over the still gorgeous graphics today. Like they kind of ruined that specifically because, as I'm sure it is the case with most people, to me the graphics are one of the things that appealed to me the most out of that game because I love pixel art. That shit's gorgeous to me. That's my favorite stuff. And they just the stills do look kind of like weird and compressed. Based on what I've seen, and I don't really know why they had to do that. It's definitely not a performance thing, you know? It makes no sense to me. There's no logical sense to me for them to be doing that sort of shit. I'm sure it's cost more, too, to change something. You know what I mean? I don't get it.
Yeah, just, like, redo the art in a higher resolution. It doesn't really...
Or leave it.
Changing. Well, I mean... When you do that, you can only scale it up so far. If you've got a 1080p monitor playing something that really... What did it used to be played on? Something ridiculously small that the SNES would have been. Because that's...
Well, like with Final Fantasy VII on PC, they just have black bars on the sides, which I don't really have a problem with, to be honest. I think they do that with a few older games as well.
Yeah, but these games were designed to be played on standard definition TVs. Like,
So was Final Fantasy VII.
PS1, and yeah, but they at least sort of semi-upscaled the graphics for the release.
Right, that's true.
But then the DS version's an even smaller screen, so any sort of remaster they did on that would still require an upscale in graphical fidelity, because the DS screen was like something ridiculously small.
Well, at the end of the day, they redid the graphics for some strange reason. They quote-unquote upscaled them, but ruined it.
Yeah, they did, because they changed it completely. The DS resolution, by the way, 256 by 192.
Wow. That sounds gross, but like on the DS...
But it's such a small screen, it
Yeah.
doesn't make any difference. That's the thing.
Exactly. But that sounds disgusting.
Oh, it does. It's like when you hear about the original Game Boys, resolution, you just want to cry. But it's really not that bad.
Yeah, right.
It's certainly something you can deal with.
Yeah.
What the fuck? The the DS Lite. It was sort of the thin version of the DS. That was
That
only
gorgeous
discontinued. I do have a white one actually, although the one I've had for years and years and years and is still in better condition was a nice teal, a light blue.
Ooh, that's
Yes. It was discontinued on... actually, I'll give you a guess. So, in Japan, it was discontinued, pardon me, March 31st, 2014. Guess when it was discontinued everywhere else?
Last year?
I mean, you're not far off. April the 1st, 2016.
Wow.
That's when it was
amazing.
discontinued. They were still making it.
That's amazing. The 3DS has even been out for a couple of years before that. Like, more than a couple of years. That's been out for a
few
bit.
years before, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Madness.
insane. That's
I
absolutely
didn't
insane.
even realise this. What a strange thing.
Well, that's Nintendo for you.
Yes,
the end of the day.
Nintendo. The weird fuckers of the game industry.
But hey, they bring us
Aw.
the best stuff.
Well, yeah. But yes, back to Chrono Trigger. I'm just disappointed because this is a game I'd love to own on PC.
Yeah.
Like,
No, honestly,
that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm thinking about... I'm thinking about buying the mobile port right now for like my trip, even, to play it on.
Yeah, but I've heard it's trash. Like all
I mean, the
controls in
reviews
really
for it
shit.
aren't like terrible.
Yeah, but the reviews
But,
on
like-
a mobile store
Yeah.
aren't exactly going to be reliable in comparison to like people who play on mobile games usually aren't serious gamers.
I agree, but there are 10,600 reviews, so I can gain some info from this.
Yeah, but consider that the amount of reviews for like Dungeon Keeper Mobile is some ridiculously large amount as well, and that's still got good reviews.
Right. I don't know. I feel like when it's on mobile, I will be able to put up with it. Whereas if it was on PC, I'd just want to kill something.
Yeah, the out of 236,000 reviews on the on the Google Play Store, Dungeon Keeper Mobile has 4.0 review score.
I forgot about Dungeon Keeper. Wasn't that supposed to be like
Yeah.
the comeback of the series?
Yeah, and it was an utter pile of like literally one of the worst mobile microtransaction ridden things in the world. You click a button, you wait a day unless you pay for something.
Yeah. it killed me.
Deary me.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Anyways, if you feel like hating yourself and ruining one of your favorite games of all time, go buy Chrono Trigger on PC. It's here now, and the UI is probably not going to change.
Yeah, if not, buy it on DS instead, except don't, because it's really expensive at the moment, because I think a lot of people have been buying it recently on DS. I wonder
Yep.
why. We will move on to the game that kicked off the Battle Royale style of game. Yes, it did.
You
It
mean
was
that
the
wasn't
first game that
PUBG?
did it? Oh, I know. How strange. Yeah, there were games that did it before. They just weren't as popular. H1Z1 was one of the first games to include a proper battle royale mode, and wasn't H1Z on an Arma 3 mod originally,
I believe
like DayZ
so.
was?
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe so.
And this is one of the more successful early access games of recent memory.
One of the early ones too, for that matter. It's been around for a bit. Like Ark Survival Evolved old, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it really is one of the first sort of early access success stories.
Yeah.
And we'd sort of I'd personally given up hope of it ever coming out of early access for a long time ago now, because it launched on early access in 2015.
Right.
January 2015 exactly, so it's been over 3 years in early access.
Wow.
Which is an extortionately long amount of time.
But hey, it's always had a player base.
It has. I mean, they've had a drop off, and they tried a King of the Hill game mode a while ago. That saw a huge drop off in a player base after it peaked. And it's not retained its audience as well as it could have done.
Right, but it's still going. Like, it's definitely not like
it is indeed, and something that might help this now is the fact that it's finally coming out of early access after 3 years.
Yeah.
It's not out of early access just yet, as we're talking, I don't think. Oh no, it leaves early access today. And they've added a new mode in called Auto Royale. And it's Battle Royale, but you're 4 people in a car.
In a Hummer.
In a Hummer, yes. 1 player drives and the other 3 shoot. And you've got power-ups to activate. You can shoot crates, and there's weapons in them. But it's the same rule set as Battle Royale style things, so the map shrinks as you go along, and I think it's the last team standing in this case. So you can't even get out of your car. You have to stay in the whole time. I think that's really cool.
No,
that's a really interesting thing.
And some of the stills on this article are pretty funny.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's just
like cars just
madness.
flying through the air and shit. No, I agree. It's an interesting little twist on it, because like you have vehicles and stuff in PUBG. I don't believe you have them in Fortnite, which is interesting.
I don't think, no.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be coming, but it's cool that they weren't just like, oh, here's a battle royale mode, even though they did have one already. But it's cool that they're like actually changing it up a little bit. Do you know? Is it going to be free to play?
No, it's definitely going to be a charged game.
I feel like
it's always been a charged game though. Well, the only
but
thing
my
that's
point is now they're
going.
The competition is here.
Yeah, but it's cheaper than PUBG. It's 15 quid.
Okay, fair. But Fortnite's free.
It does stand on mixed reviews, much like PUBG does.
Well, that's also because PUBG isn't working well, and they released it for some fucking reason. So that one deserves it.
That, and I think PUBG got review bombed, didn't it?
Oh, I'm sure.
If I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I see what you mean though. It's definitely got Fortnite to compete against, but then only the battle royale element of Fortnite is free, because you still pay for the game
the rest until this summer. This summer the game is going free to play. That was always the plan.
Oh really? They're actually bringing it all free to play in the summer.
Yeah. That was the original plan when the first game came out. It was a paid early access, and it was going to be a free-to-play game in summer 2018. But this was
probably
before...
mentioned this in like your first early review of.
Right. Yeah.
To be fair.
And this is like this was obviously before Battle Royale was like even a thing, so that could have changed. But from what I know, they haven't been touching the PvE part, which is, I will defend that thing to my death. It is fun as hell. It's a bit long and redundant. Like, I'm pretty sure the campaign takes like 100 hours. And we were at like 30 or 40 when we stopped playing it. It honestly, the progression is similar to like a mobile kind of game, where it's just like you're constantly redoing missions and stuff like that. But the thing is, it's really fun. It's really fun. There's a lot to upgrade. You're always working towards things, and they added a lot of PvE elements at the time. I haven't been keeping up with it much, but from what I know, they haven't really touched it since like, I don't know, November was the last event. Or something like that. So we'll see what they do with that.
Maybe they're just completely forgotten about that now. They're moving on to the Battle Royale because that's the popular bit.
Yeah, it's the most popular game in the fucking world, so I can't really blame them.
I mean, PUBG's probably still got more concurrent players, but...
No, at least...
Oh.
This was like, I want to say it was 2 weeks ago now. Fortnite had... It was literally, the headline was Fortnite is now the most popular game in the world.
Okay.
Hold on, let me double check
That's
this.
a bit weird.
Yeah.
You can't get Fortnite on Steam, can you?
I don't know. I think Epic has its own launcher, which is fucking...
Yeah, I think it does. No, I was just trying to use Steam Spy for convenience.
Yes, Fortnite takes over PUBG as biggest video game in the world, February 9th.
Fair enough.
Peak of 3.4 million concurrent players on Sunday. That beats PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds record of 3.2 million on Steam. But to be fair, Fortnite is on 3 platforms and it's free. So.
True. PUBG score rank 12. User score 55. Ouch.
Yeah,
yeah, it's got 32 million owners, most of whom have actually played it, which is astonishing. 99% of the people who bought this game have played it.
Nice.
Players in the last 2 weeks, 21 million, but that's not on the daily basis. Yeah, okay, it is dropping off compared to what it used to.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. If Fortnite's overtaken it, then I certainly see more Fortnite memes than PUBG memes.
Yeah. I honestly, Fortnite just, I feel like at the end of the day, honestly, it has more personality. It's just more fleshed out.
Oh, I agree in that regard.
It's
It's definitely sort of got its own thing going on.
Yeah. It's just, they approached it very well, and it paid off.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm also sick of talking about it. To be completely fucking honest with you.
Well, you know, that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's what happens. But yeah, H1Z1, do you think you want to get it now it's coming out? Oh.
I just
enough.
don't care for these types of games very much. I'm sure it'd be fun.
No.
And like 5 years ago, I would have played it, I'm sure, but like, nah.
I'm interested in specifically the car mode.
It looks fun.
Auto
yeah.
Royale. Yeah. But
I'm
I
sure
just
it
think
is
that
fun.
I'd just play a game that's that on its own, to be
Yeah.
honest. Just like micro machines or something, like cars and power-ups and weapons and shooting.
Twisted Metal.
Oh yeah, I forgot that series was a thing. That series died though, didn't it?
Well, they rebooted it on, was it PS4?
On PS3, I think it's PS3, and it was a bit shite.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last one was in 2012.
Shame. Because that was the creator and everything. He was back. Like, that was a big deal, I remember.
I remember it not getting amazing reviews.
Yeah. No, it was a big deal that it was happening. I don't think that it came out to
It got
much fanfare.
decent-ish reviews, but nothing amazing.
Yeah. Shame.
Yeah, it's a little bit, but that's what happens, really.
Yep.
Oh, well, yeah, there was a couple of cancelled games for PS3 afterwards, so, you know.
You win some, you lose some.
Anyway. So, yeah, H1Z1 is coming out of early access with a new twist on the Battle Royale formula. That sounds like something that interests you. It's like 15 quid and $20, so, you know, go for that if that's what interests you. I think I'll just steer clear for now. But anyway, on to what is going to be the last thing we talk about today. So, loot boxes, the
Snowy's favorite word.
topic. God. We've seen the net closing in on loot boxes through various political avenues for a while, and Hawaii are taking it further. You know, the Hawaii senator actually directly called on the ESRB to do something about them, as well as like his 4 bills that he's put forward towards the loot box based stuff, which is madness. And the ESRB, I wouldn't say listened, but they certainly got their heads out of their asses a little bit, and they've done something. whether that something is the correct thing to have done or not, I will leave entirely in your minds. No, it's not. But at some point soon, the ESRB have said that all games that sell digital content additional to the game will have to have an in-game purchases label on it, much like you have things like a violence and a gambling label for like the whole warnings for parents to look at and go,
like how Halo
oh my
3
God.
was M for blood and violence or something like that.
Was there any blood in Halo 3?
Yeah, a tiny bit.
Oh. Wow. But yeah, so that's a thing. But this will apply not just to things like loot boxes and microtransactions, but it will also apply to things like DLC. Because, of course, it will also apply if you can buy the soundtrack. It'll apply to that. Yeah, so even like games like The Witcher 3 have to have this label on.
Right.
But
Which, I mean, it's not lying per se.
it's not lying, but it's not really what we wanted to actually take place.
This doesn't solve
there's
any issues. This is avoiding them.
There's a very big distinction between a game selling an expansion or a DLC to a game selling little bits of skins or loot boxes and mystery crates and whatever.
Even Monster Hunter World has that. It has tiny, like, you can buy like emotes and stuff. Like, you don't even realize that because that's how.
Off.
No, but like that's how out of touch like they are with the game. Like I didn't even know this for the first like 20 hours or so. I literally didn't even notice that they were there. Like you.
Can you acquire the emotes otherwise?
No. I mean, emotes are
Oh,
useless in
fuck
that
off
game.
then.
Like even getting to them is so annoying that no one ever uses them. They're very
I mean,
non-essential.
still.
But yeah, my point is, like, that's a game that came out and like didn't really have microtransactions, which is amazing for 2018, or loot boxes or any of that bullshit. But it's still like, yes, you could buy emotes or like skin packs, but again, they were like almost non-existent. But the thing is, the game still would be receiving that sort of negative press based on like the back of the box, because it's not like cleared up due to the way the SRB are handling this.
Yeah, it's not useful. It's not useful information.
It's really not.
It's no. So they've done something, but
They just can't be bothered.
the thing is, the way they've said it, they've done the thing that they shouldn't have done, as they've thought about this from the eyes of parents and kids. It's not just children that this kind of thing can affect. It's anyone with any sort of addictive personality.
Yep.
Anyone that
Well,
might
remember,
have a gambling problem.
They don't call it. The SRB doesn't consider loot boxes gambling. Remember that.
Yeah,
fits
but
into
they're
this.
having to do something about it because of this, and I don't know how they can possibly ignore that this affects people who have addicting personalities or gambling disorders or something similar,
Right.
because there's quite a lot of admittedly anecdotal but still a fairly significant amount of evidence that this isn't just a thing that affects children.
Yep.
So they're
Affects everyone.
approaching this from maybe the wrong place, because they're saying that it's something that parents need to see so that they don't buy this game for their children. Because in their statement they said parents need simple information and the ESRB doesn't want to overwhelm them with a lot of detail. One, how stupid do you think parents are that they
Right.
can't read a sentence or two? It's like, hey, it's not like you can just go, hey, this game has DLC, or hey, this game has loot boxes. It's a very easy distinction to make, and I'm sure people will understand what that means.
Yep. Well, this is, I guess, them covering all their bases so they can't get blamed for anything. I don't really
Well,
know.
they kind of can, because they're not
Legally. they
helping.
can.
Legally, no. But, yeah. It's not. It's not. It's too broad a term though. It doesn't help. It doesn't help anything. Most games will have this label, and then a parent will just go, oh, whatever, that's on all of them. So it's either I don't care or my child will have no games, and that's not useful.
Exactly. But whatever. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm older now, but like I feel like the ESRB ratings really aren't that important anymore in the first place. I feel like no.
Well, yeah,
one
because they're a
really
bit
pays
shite and
attention
no
to
one
them.
listens.
Yeah.
But the problem is though, they have a lot of sway in the gaming industry, and the AAA developers tend to have a lot of lobbyists in like helping or talking to the ESRB about this kind of stuff.
Right.
And they sort of the AAA industry tends to base a lot of what they're doing off the ESRB's reaction or lack thereof to what they're doing.
Right.
So they seem to work under the assumption of if the ESRB doesn't care enough to leap into action about it, which they rarely do, then we're fine. Because, you know, it wasn't the ESRB that came out and went, oh no, these loot boxes are too far in Star Wars. It was the public and some senators that did it.
Right.
The people who are supposed to be monitoring this don't give a shit.
Didn't do shit. Yeah. That makes sense.
Because, yeah, so it's a bit sort of... to be fair, the whole AAA industry is a bit... when you get down to it.
Ever since, like, mid-2017.
Probably, to be fair, it's long before that. It's just, that's when it bubbled to the surface. And anyone who hadn't been knee-deep in industry bullshit finally worked out.
That's true. It has been most of this gen.
Yeah,
But,
it wasn't as bad in the early...
Everyone realized it.
I think late PS3 era was when it started going a little bit downhill. Because you had things like Dead Space 3 and Mass Effect 3 specifically.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess they just didn't bother me much at the time,
they
but
were
it
the
was
first
definitely there.
AAA games that started the idea of this stuff.
Both EA.
Yeah. Funny that.
Both franchises that weren't with EA at first? Or was Dead
EA,
Space always
leaders in greed.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Was
fuck's
Dead
sake,
Space always EA?
Yes.
Okay, it was. Mass Effect was
Donald Trump calls Jeff Sessions Mr. Magoo. For fuck's sake.
Fuck Donald Trump.
What a child. Grow
Yeah,
up.
I don't want to hear about him right now.
Oh, he's the biggest man-child in the fucking world.
Yep.
Anyway. So, yeah, I think... I'm just... The whole loot box controversy just makes me depressed. Because every time I see some sort of progress being made, you see shit like this and you just go, it's not going to change, is it?
Right.
I want it to get better, I really do. But it's not going to get better, is it?
Oh yeah, I agree, and it's a shame. But it is the world we live in.
It is. And on that depressing note, let's end the show. I'm going to rewind now. So that's the end of another episode of the GameCast Newscast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share us. If you're in the broadcast, I'm glad you're here. Hope you're enjoying the broadcast so far. It's still going at this point. We love you, yes. Stay tuned. Stay tuned to GameCast anyway, in general, for, lots of stuff. News and reviews and Let's Play content and fun stuff. But anyway, thank you very much, Max, for joining me.
As of course, my good sir.
Yes. And, yes, thank you all very much for watching this episode. And I'll see you next time for more news-based rambling and hopefully a little bit more focused, because hopefully more stuff will have happened.
Yeah, hopefully there's actually something to talk about next week.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Late to the broadcast and miss your favorite show? Fear not, we've got you covered. The GameCast YouTube channel contains all of your past and present shows on demand for you to view at a time of your convenience. The space also serves as a portal of sorts for you to discover what your favorite GameCast personalities are creating outside of the GameCast world. Simply click the link below for the past and present on demand, with a side bonus of content from your favorite GameCast personalities.
Split Screen is a show where we pick a certain topic within the current gaming climate and provide two differing opinions on that topic while trying to reach some sort of compromise. I'm your host Max, also known as Maximal.
And I'm Mark, also known as Koistorch. For example, I might say that yearly franchise releases are slowly killing the industry,
While I might say that yearly releases keep the franchise relevant while something bigger is worked on in the background.
Of course, we also encourage feedback and want your thoughts on the day's topic and future topics you'd like us to tackle as well.
Ready, fight!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Split Screen. As always, I am joined by my faithful co-host Mark. How's it going, Mark?
I'm good. I'm well rested, ready for another episode.
Hell yeah, dude. Happy to hear it. For those who don't know, Split Screen is a newer GameCast show where we present two differing opinions on a topic and we try to come to some sort of conclusion or some sort of point where we can kind of see where the other person is coming from and maybe even agree with it. In today's episode, we are talking about the difference between remasters and remakes and which is better for the industry, which is better for games in general, case-by-case basis, etc., stuff like that. I will be on the side of remasters being a good thing and arguably better than remakes in a lot of ways, and Mark will be on the opposite side of that. So, to start the conversation, I think we should talk about the recent Shadow of the Colossus remake. Mark, did you play the originals? Any of the originals?
I've played the original Shadow of the Colossus as well as Eco and stuff like that. But I played the original Shadow, but I never played the remaster.
On the PS3?
Yeah.
Okay. And I feel like while Shadow of the Colossus is definitely a cult hit and a cult following, there are still a lot of people who didn't necessarily play the game at this point. Even with the PS2 version, the PS3 port, which I'm sure actually appealed to a lot of people. And now the PS4 has gotten an entire remake, which is much more than a remaster and all that sort of stuff. And to be completely honest with you, while Shadow of the Colossus is definitely, like I said, a cult hit, has a lot of following behind it, and, it did a lot of crazy things. It definitely sort of created a genre. It sort of created a new way for developers to look at games. I do think that an entire remake over it is kind of an overkill. I'd have to say that Shadow of the Colossus, not necessarily just being remastered and ported to the PlayStation 4, is just... they already ported it to the PS3 and kind of remastered it. I don't understand why they couldn't have just done that again with the PS4, because I feel like at this point, they're almost milking it when they could be working on something else entirely. I know that they did just come out with The Last Guardian, which was... From what I know, it was decently well received. I actually played quite a bit of it, and I thought it was a very interesting game. But to me, I'd like more games kind of like that, of them experimenting and exploring things rather than just kind of remastering or spending time and resources remaking an entire game from 2 generations ago. I feel like if I wanted to go play Shadow of the Colossus, I should play the PS2 version or at least the PS3 remaster, and I feel like they could have just kind of ported that over again to the PS4. I don't see why they needed to spend so much time doing that.
Yeah, I can see that because a lot of good remakes come from well-placed timing. And I don't recall anyone necessarily screaming out that Shadow of the Colossus should be remade, because what was there was awkward, silly, but somewhat beautiful, because that's sort of how that company operates. But while a remake wasn't out of the question, because look, it was quite high-end PS2 and the Colossi still look incredible, the environments were pretty dated, and some of the animations were quite awkward. But that's all part of that Team Eco's charm.
Yes, I was about to say that.
Because from what I've seen, this remake does it maintains the grandiose, beautiful nature of the game, but some of the sort of eerie supernatural elements, like the guiding lights and the just strange motion blur and bloom effects, it made it seem so alien. But now I've seen it's still beautiful, but it's not as sort of like groundbreakingly special and crazy, like something you've never seen before.
Right.
But I also feel like that comes from misplaced timing. Like, I think a remake isn't out of the question, but it came too soon after the remaster, because the remaster was only like 2-3 years ago, and it's not like PS3 games have gone extinct. Like,
yeah. And also, I could even kind of say I don't think there's really much demand for this sort of game to be remastered or to be remade and to come. Am I wrong in that?
No, like I would have never expected it to be remade. Like, I always expected remasters. Like you said, that this particular game, I definitely thought it would have been ported.
Yeah, see, I thought that too. I'm surprised that it wasn't. I'm kind of surprised that there isn't a port and a remake. Like, meaning that they ported it first and then also focused on the remake. I don't know. Developers are weird sometimes.
Yeah, and so that's just like an example of an awkward remake. Like, no one really called for it, but we got it anyway.
Right.
But then, like, you can have remakes that are quite groundbreaking or that were more necessary, like the Crash Bandicoot trilogy, where they completely rebuilt the engine and made it look practically nothing like what it used to, because that was a PS1 series.
And there was also demand for Crash. Like, that is one remake that I think is actually necessary and important. Like you said, like, the timing is so much more important. Like, yes, there was the original Crash trilogy, and like the newer games, like on PS2 and PS3, those gens, I don't think they were very good. People didn't really like them, and they kind of fell off from what Crash was. And this remake, this timing was brilliant, because people were demanding for Crash. Like, people have never not wanted more Crash games, you know what I mean? Like, people wanted those back. And the same thing is starting to happen with the Spyro rumors as well.
Yeah, like Spyro is one where I've been looking forward to as well. But like, I think that the right timing for remakes and this sort of structure is definitely fan demand, because Crash and Spyro have both gotten that in spades. But it also comes down to if that game had been remastered before, or if it was previously accessible. Like, look at the PlayStation 3, even though it wasn't PlayStation 2 compatible, or at least its later models weren't, it was still PlayStation 1 compatible. So you could still technically play Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and all that. But now that we're in this new generation where basically backwards compatibility, bar the Xbox One, doesn't exist, a lot of people are pining for these games they couldn't have before, and sometimes these remakes are also made multi-platform and things like that. So people that might have moved console generation or never experienced something before can experience it without it feeling dated, because they never had that nostalgia to get them through it.
Right. Well, no, I can I guess that's my thing too. I feel like developers, they sometimes use remakes as sort of a quick buck, because while they definitely take more effort than remasters, I still feel like that's much easier and cheaper than just making a whole new game. And again, case in point, Shadow of the Colossus, in my opinion. But another thing when it comes to remasters is, though, I know that people complain about remasters a lot and say like this, and this, but I think that they serve a big purpose in just bringing new life to games that not necessarily didn't make it last gen, but also games that just people are actually missing, or like games that actually, like you said, it's been like a time since they released, like the recently announced Burnout Paradise remaster. Like, that I think is a brilliant idea. That is definitely not a game that needed a remake by any means, anything, but it's still a game like people pined for, people still wanted, people really, really enjoyed, and that game has always been kind of talked about still. Like, that game, people talked about it still, and we're like, oh man, remember Burnout Paradise? I'd love to play that again. It makes more sense for this type of game to be ported over and remastered, because it's also an online multiplayer game. There's an audience demand there. People will pick it up for a cheaper price, mind you, and get back into that great online community because it's a timeless game in the long run. Like it was just designed so well that it doesn't need to be remade or anything like that. And I feel like most games that are quote unquote remade are just more remade to make them prettier, even though the gameplay still remains largely the same. And again, that's why I just feel like remasters are better, because remasters still make the games like prettier, but they don't make them like overhauls and waste a lot more time and money.
Yeah. Well, it's I think it is definitely a thing based off the want and need of community, and if that game can still hold its own, say, if it was graphically by itself, like I think once you sort of reach like early PS2 to PS1, that sort of calls for an actual remake, because that stuff, if you didn't have the nostalgia, it makes it hard to jump in, and that's just a rule of thumb that I think for this generation. But for something like, say, Burnout Paradise is the perfect example for pretty much a launch PlayStation 3 game and the final Burnout game, because they just never made a sequel.
True.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's probably the right call, because one, it already looked incredibly pretty, it played very well, and it just fell by the roadside because it's at that start of that generation, when we're like mid this generation now.
Right.
Like it's been
late this generation, maybe.
Yeah. We don't know.
If we're to believe rumors.
Yeah. I mean, we're just getting started on the Switch. We don't know how to judge this generation.
Right. Well, what's your stance on the Final Fantasy VII remake? Because I know that that's actually changing things, and I don't think that that's necessarily for the better.
Yeah. So I think that like a remake was always going to happen for FF7, but I don't think anyone expected it to be like this. So typically a remake will change the engine to a brand new thing, give it a fresh coat of paint, but keep all of the core values, elements, and gameplay the same or very similar. FF7 has it led us to believe, we still don't know because there's so little information available, but from the last time we saw it, it was an active battle system where you could move around the environment and attack freely, kind of like Crisis Core or Final Fantasy 15, as opposed to the semi-turn-based ATB gauge system of the older original games. And that's a bit different because now, like, is it necessarily a remake or is it a reimagining of the game that we're used to? Will it provide any nostalgia, or will it feel like something else entirely? It'll be the same story we've had, but completely different core.
And couldn't you say that sort of defeats like the soul of the game, almost like the purpose? Yeah. Like I feel like that changes like the core values of what makes a game, because at the end of the day, yeah, you can upscale movies and like remaster music and stuff like that, and that's easier. And like a game, what it has at its core is that makes it different from other art forms is that it's gameplay, and when you change the gameplay of it, it's like, well, what's sacred anymore at this point?
Yeah. Like it's FF7 is such a hard one just because we know so little about it as well. But I think that it was a very big internal discussion. Like I for one don't necessarily agree with the changes. I think it should, like, I don't mind an active system, but I think it should be scaled back a bit more to be more reminiscent of what we've had before. But I think that they've made these decisions because they don't think that the new market will bear it. Like, say, how Final Fantasy 15 was a more active, open-world, Western-style game structured for old and new fans, but more catered to new fans, because, like, older fans might see it as something else entirely. I think that Final Fantasy 7 is almost like a remake made for people that didn't play the original, if that makes sense.
It does, and that's kind of what skeezes me out about it. It makes me feel like it's more of a money grab than anything, because it's like, if you want to cater to the Western audience and the casual audience, then make Final Fantasy 16 like you did 15. Don't remake and change like a classic game that people love.
Yeah, because I don't know. Because the core of a remake, I think we'll agree on this, that the core of a remake is that it'll look prettier, it'll change a few things, especially visually, or make it run better if there were some mechanics that were odd. But the core of the game, the gameplay, will remain the same or very similar, because that's what made it special enough to get a remake or a remaster or whatever initially.
Right.
At this point, you're practically making a brand new game.
Yeah, and it's like, but you're using borrowed assets from a previous game, and that's what bothers me of it, like the story and everything. And that's why I'm just kind of like, that pisses me off, because I don't know, there are, in terms of remasters, there are lazy remasters as well. Like, I'd say the Dishonored remastered, the definitive edition of it. God, remember the beginning of this gen, definitive edition. Dishonored, I think, was a good idea to remaster it, because I remember it reviewed super well. I think it sold the best in the series, but I still don't think it's sold amazingly well. And that's just because it's more of a niche title. So bringing it to the next gen was a good idea, but the thing is, they still kind of screwed up the port. Like, the port, it still, like, it frame hitches a lot. Loading screens are incredibly long. The resolution is kind of like, the upscaling is kind of like, it just wasn't a very good port at all. It's still playable by all means, but like, it basically just feels like, it almost feels worse than the last gen version in some ways, and I'm not sure why that is. To me, that's kind of a lazy idea and a lazy remaster, and that's where I can see why people get angry at remasters. But at the end of the day, I just don't think they're taking much resources or anything away from the team. Like, they were still working on Dishonored 2 during this time, whereas if they were like remaking Dishonored 1 from the ground up, I feel like that would have taken a lot more time for Dishonored 2 to come out and stuff like that. Like, I feel like that's just an unnecessary use of resources at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, like, I think that's also, again, another thing about timing. Like, they probably wanted it on current gen hardware because the sequels would be on that hardware, but it's too soon. It's too soon from the originals. Like, The Last of Us remaster, that was like a year after the game came out on PS3. Like, that doesn't need a remaster. That's a port. That's a straight up port.
Right.
But then, like, there's other remasters that you could consider lazy or just straight up messy. Like how they remastered all of the Kingdom Hearts games. How they did 1.5 and 2.5 on PS3. Like, you go, oh, fair. All of these games are available on one console. That seemed quite reasonable because they were all scattered and messy. But then they did the 1.5, 2.5 on PlayStation 4. And I think they bundled it as well on PS3. And I felt like that was quite awkward.
I could see that. That's the issue with like both remasters and remakes. It's just there's good and bad cases for the most part, but I feel like in almost every sense a remaster is just a better idea at the end of the day, except for like maybe like broken games that had good elements and everything. But like, I don't know, like, even we were talking before this, there's the remasters are also a great way to introduce games to a new audience, which remakes are as well, but again, that resource argument. So Bayonetta 1 and 2 coming to the Switch. Those are just ports and like remasters and everything. Those aren't remakes by any sense of the imagination, because instead they decided to focus their time and resources on making Bayonetta 3. But they're also bringing Bayonetta 2, which was only on Wii U, to an actual audience because no one bought a Wii U. They're also hyping up this franchise, for the new release, and they're bringing it to a new console that a lot of people are buying. And Bayonetta, while it reviewed super well, it was also more of a cult hit. So this is opening it up to just the rest of the world. So I think that's a genius idea, whereas if it was like a remade game, that'd just be a waste of time and space. Like, they even ported Bayonetta 1 to PC, if you remember, and they gave it like 60 frames of 4K support. That's great. They didn't remake the whole fucking thing.
But I think it is definitely a case-by-case thing, and like a good remaster or a good remake is definitely used to, say, inform a certain franchise reimagining. Like, say, like Bayonetta is a good one because no one bought a Wii U, even though they did 1 and 2 on Wii U. Still, no one really bought it, and people aren't going to buy a Wii U to inform themselves of the franchise for 3, because if they've already decided that they want 3, then they've already decided that they want a Switch, which means that they already want to get 2. And conveniently, 2 comes with 1 bundled in it.
Yep.
So it's
Genius.
Yeah. So that's I think that's the sort of way to go, where you build remasters for reasons, remasters and remakes for reasons. If the community wants it, if it's good timing for the rest of the franchise, if you can definitely capitalize on your business, on your idea and your franchise without neglecting what you're going to do next in the future. Like, say, you said that doing a remake might take resources away or screw up the fundamentals of that game.
Right.
As long as the resources are still on point, like with Bayonetta, because it didn't take much effort. As long as they're not neglecting the rest of their projects, like Square Enix with Final Fantasy VII Remake, clearly that takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, it's just, I just don't see the point. There are very, very few cases where you can convince me a remake is the better option. The Crash franchise being one of the better reasons, as is like the rumored Spyro one, which I really hope is real. And also there's those rumors that Crash is getting another game in 2019. So it's also a great way to just judge like the reception of the series, because they could have remastered just the Crash games and done it like, you know, they could have just remastered them, made them look pretty and everything, and that would have been fine and dandy. But I think because they were remade and everything, there was a lot of hype around it, and you know, there was like a lot more of like a special occasion because, like you said, timing. Whereas most other games, that just isn't the case, and now we're getting a new Crash because of it, which is just freaking awesome, and I love that so much. Most likely it's a rumor, but I'm sure it's gonna happen. But then there's also the case of, like, for example, Ratchet and Clank. I believe the games were ported to PS3, right? The PS2 trilogy was ported to PS3, but then instead of doing that again with the PS4, they just made a new one. Did they not?
Yeah, there's like that's the other thing. Where do you place the Ratchet and Clank PS4 game? Because it's this awkward remake reboot mixture,
right?
Where
they put effort into like making it new.
Yeah, but like it felt like a brand new game, but its story, or at least half of its story, was Ratchet and Clank 1. But with a new coat of paint and using the assets from the movie, which is its own awkward mess itself.
See that? Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, they used it to like promote the movie and everything, which is weird. That is a weird case that I forgot about.
Yeah, and so like we don't. It's hard to judge if that was a remake, or a reboot, because it had characters that hadn't been in it before, as well as alluding to, say, the villain from 3 being in 1 and 2. And you're like, is it a reboot? Is it a reimagining? Is it a remake? Are you just adding new content? It's
right.
I think that's just one where we can't really.
That one needs its own discussion.
What it is.
And also, come to think of it, is that the only Ratchet and Clank game that's come out this gen?
Yes.
That's interesting.
I'd love them to continue it. Like whatever this awkward mess was, I enjoyed it. I'd like a 2 and 3. Especially since 3 was my favorite.
Dude, 3 is the best. Let's get Deadlocked too while we're at it. I loved Deadlocked. Just as like a side thing. That just could be remastered. See, that's my thing.
Yeah, do it like a Ratchet and Clank, do it like a Battlegrounds type thing, Deadlocked.
Oh,
that's the current trend, and they've got crazy crazy weapons.
Battlegrounds. That's a discussion in and of itself as well.
Yeah. If it happens, you can say you heard it here first.
Yeah, right? GameCast thought of it.
Insomniac era fans.
True. But yeah, to kind of wrap it up, I would definitely have to say that I do think in almost every case, remasters are better. In both cases, there are lazy ones, there are good idea ones, and then there are some like Ratchet and Clank, which are just in the middle. But at the end of the day, if you want to bring a game to a new audience, port it over, make it look prettier, and then it's there. If you want to just remake the whole thing and change the gameplay and everything, just make a new game in the franchise. Make a new game in that style. You can reboot the story and everything. That's the great thing about this sort of stuff. You can change the story, give it the same characters. You can do whatever you want. Just if you want new gameplay, just make a new game, in my opinion. I just don't think remakes are almost ever necessary, except in, again, special cases like PS1 games. Great, that makes sense. It's been, 20, 30 years now? Not 5.
Yeah, like, it is. At the end of the day, it comes down to timing. That's just the thing. Like, a remaster is good in the short term, a remake is good in the long term. If we haven't seen the game for 20 years, most likely you should remake it.
If there's demand.
If there's demand. Yeah, like, don't remake Croc. It's like no one's gonna really care. Like I'm sure there's a niche, but like that's not one where you advertise it like you did Crash, sort of,
right?
Or give it the resources that you did Crash.
Like even Bubsy, they went the right way with that in making it a new game, even though the game was trash.
Oh, freaking! The original is trash too.
Yeah, it is.
It comes down to timing. Comes down to the actual audience itself, because you can't just awkwardly or randomly make a remake or remaster something. There needs to be some sort of driving force behind it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and like saying that, like, if you want to just make a new game, then make a new game. You can have the same characters like you said, but like don't as a developer, don't think that that's off limits. Like, look at Mario. It's been the same story for 30 plus years, and they've just changed the gameplay each time, and it works.
Yeah, you ain't seeing any remastered Mario games. Exactly. Except for 64, and that makes sense.
Yeah. Because like that structure works. You don't need to worry, like, story, depending on the game it is secondary.
Yep, exactly. Well, thank Mark. Wow.
Thank Mark.
Well, thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks. You know what? I'll leave it at that. You heard us. I thanked Mark for being on. As always, whatever your guys' opinions are on remakes and remasters, don't forget to leave them in the comments below. Argue with each other. Argue with us. Let us know what you think. And always, don't forget to stay tuned to GameCast for all of your different gaming needs. You know, we do reviews, let's plays, daily news, all sorts of original and interesting content here on the channel. Don't forget to check out our GameCast Discord. There will be a link in the description down below where you can chat with everyone in the GameCast network, and hell, maybe even join up with GameCast if you have a good idea for it. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see y'all soon.
The GameCast broadcast is an ambitious project that's fueled by passionate creators that have been giving their hearts and souls, emphasis on souls, to realize TV for gamers. If you enjoy what we create for you on a weekly basis and wish to support further grow GameCast and the TV for Gamers broadcast, please consider a small donation via the GameCast Patreon page link down below. Every donation, big or small, adds up, and any support we receive will positively affect your favorite GameCast personalities and contribute towards the future growth of new entertainment for you, our fans. And remember, for just $1 a day, you can stop the abuse that we inflict upon Alex and Max that we keep locked up in our basement. Remember, for $1 a day, they may someday see sunlight again. Captain Count, we have some bogeys on our radar. Oh, no, wait, I stand corrected. They're just releases. Don't adjust your sets, the release radar is spinning up. The Count has worked tirelessly to fine-tune his radar. Lucky for you and I, his radar is capable of spotting some of the best new releases that might have slipped by otherwise.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the GC Release Radar. I am Snowy, otherwise known as Count Fracula. I'm a bit ill, but I'm going to try and get through as many little releases as I can for you. We will start with a release from Early Access, Pit People. And this is a very XCOM-like game, but a bit different. There's a lot more classes involved, and it's a strategy game, as you might have guessed from the first bit of that. And it's got one of the better senses of humour of games of recent times. It's made by the same people who make Castle Crashers, and let's be honest, they are known for their very good sense of humour when it comes to these kinds of things. It's also a very good game for playing co-op. There's a nice little mini-series of Total Biscuit and Jesse Cox playing that, if you want to find that. But yeah, it was in early access for quite a while. It's just come out, priced at $10.99, and for a strategy game that's as strange yet compelling as this, that's certainly a good deal. The next game is Mount Your Friends 3D. Now, Mount Your Friends, the original sort of 2D version, was a game that was heavily capitalized upon by streamers and YouTubers because of its interesting concept and genital wiggling, basically. It was very much a meme game, and the developers have just, instead of just resting on their laurels, they've built on the concept. And there's actually a little bit more to the game this time. You are playing in a 3D environment as opposed to a 2D plane, but there are actually other obstacles in your way, bits of terrain, weird spiral staircase things. So, you know, they've actually added stuff to the gameplay, which, Assassin's Creed, take note. Oh, the satire. Priced at £5.19. You know, that's not overly expensive for a fun little co-op game, and you can play it online, or you can play it with friends, but, you know, I think it's one of those things that's really better played with your own friends rather than just random people on the internet. But again, it's not that expensive. Next game I'm going to talk about is a game I can't remember if I've actually talked about before or not, but it is the next game from the creators of FTL Faster Than Light. Come out on the 27th of February. It is called Into the Breach, and if you buy it at the moment for £11.39, which is a very reasonable price, you get a free copy of FTL Faster Than Light, their previous game. If you already own that, you still get a free copy that you can then gift to a friend, although anyone who doesn't own FTL Faster Than Light now really ought to be getting a hold of it, because it's an incredibly good game. And this looks like more of the same quality. They've changed what they're doing completely. It's still a strategy game, but this time it is turn-based instead of real-time, semi-turn-based mash the spacebar that FTL was. And it's set on much smaller maps, but certainly very in-depth, very interesting. I love the cyberpunk mech theme, and everything about this appeals to me, and considering the developer that it's coming from, this is a game that is definitely worth your time. And the final thing I'm going to talk about is not actually a game. I just want to bring this to your attention. It is a Humble Bundle. The latest game bundle from the Humble store is called the Brawler Bundle, and it comes with some of the best fighting games you can ever possibly buy, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Because, yeah, that's a thing. You know, it's there for the novelty value, but I just want to bring this bundle to everyone's attention, because especially if you like fighting games and you want to bolster your collection, this is a great thing to find. It's got Guilty Gear XX A-Core Core Plus R. I really hate the way that the Guilty Gear games are put together in terms of their names. It's terrible. BlazBlue Continuum Shift Extend, Skullgirls, which I thoroughly recommend. Skullgirls is amazing. Arcana Heart 3, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Guilty Gear XRD, Sign, and Rivals of Aether. All beautiful fighting games, and, you know, that's the kind of thing that you like. This game is, this bundle is certainly for you. You get Skullgirls, Guilty Gear, and BlazBlue in the Pay What You Want tier, Street Fighter Cross Tekken and Arcana Hearts in the £3.98 currently average tier, which is $5.48, and Guilty Gear, XRD, and Rivals of Aether are in the $9 or £6.53 tier, which is actually slightly less than I paid. I think that's because PayPal charges for conversions. So yes, brilliant, great bundle, go and get that. And that is the end of this episode of the Release Radar. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm in a bit of a rush and I'm feeling slightly ill because I'm recording this very late because I forgot. Well done me. If you enjoyed this, give us a like, subscribe, or a share, whatever you fancy. And if you're watching the broadcast, brilliant. Love to have you here. If you're not watching the broadcast, go and watch the broadcast on Saturdays at 10 a.m. CST, and I think that just continues throughout the day. We broadcast it at least twice on both Twitch and YouTube. We're experimenting with how we're doing it, but it's a really great place to come and see all of our content at once and join in some live chat with members of our community. So that's that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time for more releases.
The GameCast Discord is the hub of the small world that is GameCast. It's a thriving community filled with gamers, GameCast personalities, and other miscellaneous people we somehow keep picking up along the way. We really don't know how to get rid of them. Not only will it keep you up to date and in the know on all things GameCast, but you will also find weekly gaming events, streams, and of course, a very salty Count Fracula, now also available in a low-sodium alternative. Coming up next, Game Changer. Explore the many weird and awesome ways you could be playing your favorite games. Hacks, mods, challenges, and glitches. Game Changer and your host Alex are sure to have it all.
What's up everyone, Alex here, and welcome back to Game Changer. This is where we explore weird and awesome ways to play games. Today we are looking at a challenge called the Skyroll Challenge. This is a Skyrim challenge that uses dice. Let's get right into that. This is a challenge that was created by Daedrothman on the Neoseeker forums. It's Daedroth, I actually don't know how to pronounce that, but that person is the one who came up with this Skyrim challenge and all the rules that you have to follow for it. So this is more of a role-playing thing rather than a challenge, but there are so many different outcomes that I feel like that's the category that I need to put this under. What you're going to need is a D10 die and 3 D20 dice. So, the typical dice that you would use for something like Dungeons and Dragons, because what you roll is going to affect the outcome of your playthrough, what you need to do, who you play as, and what kind of rules you need to follow. So the goal is to become a successful adventurer. None of the Dragonborn stuff, no main quest lines, no companions, no Dark Brotherhood, anything like that. You are on a one-way ticket to purchasing a house. Literally, that is the whole goal of the Skyroll roleplay challenge. You have to follow this set of rules to purchase a house. And at that point, your character is considered retired, quote unquote. You have to buy the house and upgrade the house completely. So whatever your house ends up being, it needs to be fully upgraded in order for you to retire. That's basically the whole premise. So here are the rules. You have to play at Adept or higher in difficulty. You have to roll to determine your traits and your race. And there's a permadeath rule. That means that if you die, that is game over. You're done. Delete the file. Burn it. Put it in a trash can and burn it. There's really only 3 steps to this, and I've included the rules in a document in the description below if you want to try this out. Obviously, you're going to need this list to determine your outcome, what kind of character you're going to have, and what kind of rules you're going to follow. Roll a d10 die, and that determines your race. Anything from Argonian to Breton to Orc, Imperial, everything. You're going to roll 3 d20 dice, and that determines what kind of rules you have to follow. It's more like traits. They're listed as traits. There are also kind of rules. Some of them include you can only drink alcohol, you can't use ranged combat, you have to get vampirism as soon as possible, and 17 other traits that you can have for your character. Then you're going to roll a d10 die again, and this determines what house you are shooting for. So if you end up with the big fancy house in Markarth, that's your goal. Your one goal is to buy and upgrade your house. You don't do anything that is part of the main storyline. You can do side quests, you can, pickpocket things, you can kill everything you possibly can. You can go dungeoning. Dungeoning is not a verb. You can loot dungeons if it means that you have enough money to put toward this house. I think what I like most about this challenge is that I'm forced to play in a way that I wouldn't have considered before. I don't normally play as anything but, the Khajiit or a Wood Elf. I think that this challenge is worth it. It adds long-term value to an already expansive game. Every single playthrough is unique and fresh. There's so many different outcomes to this. You could roll and end up with the hardest playthrough ever, or you could roll and you have the easiest playthrough ever. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Daedrothman on the Neoseeker forums for coming up with this challenge. This is actually super cool. And I'm sorry if I mispronounce that name. I don't know what your name is actually supposed to be pronounced. Anyway, if you want to see more content like this, go over to the GameCast channel and check out what we're doing over there. We have news, reviews, podcasts, and Let's Plays. We're doing some awesome stuff. Consider subscribing, and I am signing off for now. See you later.
Are you on the fence about a game? Maybe your friends are unhelpful and your family doesn't care? Well, we do. Come check out our reviews of games, new and old, even mods to spice things up. Gaming pastime, gaming reviews.
Hey there, my name is Max, and I'm team leader of the review space here at GameCast. Our game reviews provide an in-depth look at the latest and greatest games, as well as some of our favorites from over the years. Stay tuned for this week's reviews and impressions up next.
I'm Mark, and welcome to another GameCast review. Today I'll be looking at Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, now available for the PlayStation 4 and PC. Let's start, as always, with gameplay. Gameplay and story go hand in hand as exploration, combat, and environmental storytelling all come together to weave a narrative of Senua's fragile psyche. For the most part, Hellblade is a light third-person action-adventure game, where you'll roam about stunning, semi-linear environments while solving puzzles and fighting monsters. The game doesn't have a tutorial and instead urges the player to figure it out for themselves, which adds to a sense of accomplishment but can also be quickly remedied by pausing the game and looking at the controls. The majority of the game is puzzle and exploration segments, where Senua must roam around the environment piecing together the way forward. It's interesting at first and definitely forces the player to pay attention to the environment, but it can be a bit repetitive as there isn't a huge amount of variation on the concept. The star of these gameplay segments is Senua's psychosis, as she'll see things or hear things that may not even be there. The lighting will shift suddenly, the voices will grow louder, and your sense of direction will be thrown out the window. It's here that the exploration sections shine, as they work as a narrative device and instill fear into the player, as they experience a mental strain they most likely have never felt before. The other side to the coin is combat. Being an action-adventure game and developed by Ninja Theory carries with it certain expectations. However, Hellblade is not really an action game. These segments are more like another aspect of Senua's mind, as they serve to break up the exploration and renew a sense of tension and danger. The combat itself isn't too major and functions like a game of rock, paper, scissors for when enemies are open to different kinds of strikes. Juggling multiple foes at once is stressful to say the least, and the voices are again a major part of the game, as they taunt you or help you throughout an encounter. The difficulty is defaulted to auto, which means the game will scale to your playstyle, and I felt like that was the best way to experience this game, as you don't get too full of yourself or you're given a break amongst multiple failures. It's not the deepest or best combat around, but it suits the game and tone they were going for. Next, let's delve into the story. Hellblade is all about Senua. Her journey into the unknown and her quest are all shrouded in mystery. It's best to discover it for yourself, but the general gist is, Senua has left her village and entered the land of the dead. She is plagued by mysterious voices at all hours, and they are a source of constant narrative and torment for Senua. These voices are a part of her darkness, and the world will react based on her psyche. The darkness is also given physical presence in different ways during combat and exploration, but it also manifests itself on Senua's arm, tracking the amount of times she's fallen in battle. This is representative of Senua's mental stability, as the creeping darkness has you worrying for her at all times. The voices all have different personalities, and some are there to guide you, while others taunt you, and some inform you of what's to come. Set in a melding between Celtic and Norse mythologies, there are many familiar themes and characters. It was interesting to see how it was all realised, and most of the narrative hits a balance of constant uncertainty, as you're never really sure if what Senua is seeing is real or not. In many ways it's confronting, as I was experiencing a game that made me feel uncomfortable at almost every moment. It's also because of this that Hellblade is hard to put down, as it pulls you in and connects you with Senua. Next, let's talk about the twisted imagery of Hellblade. Much like Ninja Theory's other games, Hellblade has utilised exceptional motion capture to express a living, breathing human that is clearly suffering. Her eyes dart around in panic and her face contorts in hideous shapes to display her fear. The best scenes in the game are when Senua is monologuing to the voices and staring right down the imaginary camera, looking straight at the player. Senua's psychosis is a visual and audible terror. It whispers in your ears, muddles your thoughts, and makes it hard to focus. You see things that might not even be there, and certain lighting effects work to make something ordinary turn to fear-inducing. The exploration segments force the player to focus on the environment, and it was an interesting way to get the player to notice something they would usually walk past. The enemies and bosses are intimidating, and actually quite hard to describe. The battle effects are flashy, and there is a distinct rhythm to combat. The sound effects and soundtrack are fantastic, perfectly matching the world and shifting for the stress of each moment. Senua's performance is incredible, and the multiple voices echoing around are of a similar harrowing caliber. I'm not sure if I could really call Hellblade fun. It's more confronting if anything. In terms of mechanics, it all works well enough, although it could go a bit deeper in terms of puzzle variety and combat. At times it was hard to watch or slow to move forward, but I couldn't put it down. That's what makes it so hard to judge. Was this fun? It's a question that I don't think I can really answer when discussing a game like this. Hellblade behaves less like a game and more like an interactive movie. It's probably even closer to a documentary than a movie with the way it presents mental illness. It isn't everyone's cup of tea, and I can see this exploding within niche circles. I can't vouch for how realistic its interpretation of psychosis is, but it helped me understand what some people would have to go through. I was absorbed in the world, and I can see myself looking back on this release as something that tried to do something different. So for that, Hellblade is worth a buy from me. Thanks for watching. You can also find more from me and GameCast in the description below. Until next time, bye!
Hey there, hi there, hello there, internet dwellers. My name is Orange Lightning, and welcome to another GameCast review. Today I'll be talking about Beans, the coffee shop simulator, a single-player micromanagement game with flair brought to life by Whitethorn Digital. So diving straight into the gameplay, you start off with a tutorial level to get into the swing of things, with the wonderfully charismatic butler Albert taking you through the basic mechanics. Everything is controlled via the mouse, unless you happen to place something in the wrong place and need to move or rotate it, which is moved using Shift and R to rotate, so super easy for anyone to pick up and get going with. So the premise is simple enough. You need to fill your coffee shop with appliances, furniture and decor to impress and satisfy your customers, whilst researching new recipes to add to an ever-growing menu to attract more patrons. There are also options to hire more employees once things start getting really busy, and hosting events to appeal to even more customers, such as local bands and even protests. Of course, the progression and growth of your shop relies on money, so be sure to put down many tables so your guests can leave lots of wonderful tips when they leave. Once you have fulfilled all of the criteria set out in the progress log of each level, you can complete and move on to the next, but there is the option to keep going until you are well and truly done with that map. This can be a bit of a slow burner, as it tends to take a little while for things to really get going, since you can't afford too much to start off the shop with. There is the ability to click on customers and receive hints of what they like, but I found that this wasn't really very useful, and although the game warned me I would get angry people because I didn't have their favourite tipple, this never really cropped up either. Probably not the best approach, but I pretty much ignored the patrons and just got on with decorating. Once things speed up though, it's off like a rocket and your head will be spinning from the sound of the frickin' cash register. Now, researching recipes has a very interesting mechanic around it, in that once you buy certain appliances, more possible recipes are available. But to add them to the menu, you need to correctly choose which appliances are needed and drag them into the research grid. It costs money to do though, and you may not get it right and end up with goop. So early game, it is a bit risky if you're experimenting. However, this also kind of shoots itself in the foot, as you can buy recipes from Albert, the ever so helpful butler, and while they are more expensive, you can be sure that it will be right. I don't know about you, but I'm lazy, so I did this more than anything. A super cool aspect though, is that through the characters in the story, Each new level includes a new addition to the gameplay to impede your success, such as level 2, where you're introduced to an opposing health inspector who keeps sending people in your shop to chuck litter everywhere. Now you have to worry about this, along with keeping the customers happy and building up your shop. I was excited to see what other concepts would be used in the following levels after playing this, as the added challenge was enjoyable, but a couple of the mechanics added in did not really seem to affect the general upkeep of the store, so did fall a little flat. Moving over to the story, I was surprised that this game was actually very story driven. A lot of simulator games I have played have had more of a focus on gameplay and standout mechanics, encouraging the player to make their own stories. But not Beans. No, with this game you are handed a murder mystery complete with evil council meetings between levels. With a duck, in a top hat. Playing as Ruby Ace, a blunt and sarcastic woman down on her luck, you receive a letter from the head of a very successful coffee brand, stating that should something happen to him, you as his youngest heir are to take over the coffee business and the fortune that comes with it. Naturally, leaping at the chance to claim all of that money, Ruby accepts. But dark forces are at work, and those behind the murder of Coffee Bottom, yes, Coffee Bottom, are out to ruin your chances for inheritance. It is a simple story, but pumped full of humour and light-hearted enough to be fun and enjoyable. The characters carry the plot through, and there are also a lot of adult situations and language as well that I didn't see coming. And overall, I am a fan of Ruby as the lead. It was nice to play as a strong-willed and bad-tempered female protagonist, perhaps a model you don't normally see, as she can be quite unlikable at times, really. But she brings the everyday person into the business Moogle world and provides some great banter with the higher class patrons she is faced with. And she actually proves herself to be pretty resourceful when the time calls for it and comes out on top. Taking a closer look at the graphics, performance and sound, the look of this game is something that drew me to it. I am a big fan of the older 2D style, and all of the small details down to the change on the tables just filled me with joy. Anyone who has ever been in a coffee shop will recognise the little touches, and the fact that each level gives you totally different variety of decorations and furniture to kit out your cafe is awesome. It's fantastic. No two coffee shops will ever be the same. I had little issues with performance in Beans until the latter levels, where some bugs snuck their way in. On one map in particular, some of my customers decided to get stuck at the till, paying for their food and drink and happily eating it or consuming it, but they wouldn't leave. Once I completed the level, all of their cups remained for a second and then vanished. I worry they may have died there, and that would be bad for business. Also, the final level seemed a lot more temperamental in regards to furniture placement than the rest of the game, but other than that, it does play pretty well. The soundtrack is very subtle in that I could play through each level for extended periods of time without really noticing it, but for this type of game that works because the music needs to add to the ambience of the game without being too distracting or intense, and simply there to be background noise as if a radio is actually playing in the shop itself. But don't get me wrong, they're still very catchy little tunes. On to the fun factor. For a relatively stress-free casual game, I do rate Beans. I enjoyed the whole experience, but I wanted more. It is a short playthrough of a few hours, depending on whether you're taking your time with it or completing levels as soon as you are able to. I think it would benefit from a free play mode outside of the story, where players can just build a coffee shop and look after it until they are bored of it. This is actually what I was expecting more of in the game, and wondered if the option may be there after completing the story, but sadly it's not. Due to this, there is not a massive amount of replayability to this game, as once the story is over, your only options are to play through it again, and whilst you can skip the cutscenes, there isn't a huge draw to do so, unless you're a bit of an achievement hoarder. Other than this though, I really do like this game. It is adorable, it's quirky, and no matter what, I was genuinely looking forward to turning it back on and continuing my playthrough. So to wrap this up then, I really enjoyed Beans. It was surprising and inventive, and had more depth than I was originally expecting. But if it could be a bit longer, with some after story or free play options, I think it would be spot on. So for the experience, I'm giving Beans a worth a buy score. For only a couple of quid, it is a fun little break from some of the more high intensity titles out there, and will get at least one chuckle out of you. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this review of Beans, the coffee shop simulator. If you want to see more from us here at GameCast, please like and subscribe, and keep watching for more awesome gaming content. And if you want to see more from me, there are links in the description below to my channel, Orange Lightning Playzone, and all other social spaces I frequent. So, take care for now. Bye! Hey there, hi there, hello there, internet dwellers. My name is Orange Lightning, and welcome to another GameCast review. Today, I will be talking about Galaxy of Pen and Paper, a turn-based RPG romp through the widest reaches of space, the helm led by the overlords of Behold Studios. Got your dice ready? Yes? Because you are going to need them for this role-playing voyage. Galaxy of P&P, is what I'm going to shorten it to, is centered around the D&D games of old, combining point-and-click movement to go from place to place with strategic RPG battle tactics, and a few player choices thrown in for giggles. The whole game is pretty much controlled with your trusty mouse, with very little to digest in terms of actual buttons to press, and more about learning the mechanics of combat and mastering your trusty space cadet companions. Fighting is much the core of the gameplay, as virtually everything you do will be to affect the upcoming battles, be it moving to the next location, buying items and gadgets for your party, or managing the levels and abilities of each fighter themselves. To start then, you are given 2 party members. There isn't much customizing for them in terms of appearance, but you have full reign to choose which class they will be, species, and personally, best of all, social norm they will adopt. There are a lot of gaming stereotypes in this one, kids. As you progress throughout the campaign, more people can join your party, up to 4, but there is the option to make new characters still and switch them out. Someone not working out how you planned? Bench them in a snazzy cryopod and come back for them later. Each class gives your character different skills to unlock through leveling, and each adventurer can have 4 skills set at one time. So there is some planning involved to make sure you are covering the bases, unless of course you want a full team of tanks with no healers. Could work. Getting a little closer to the showdowns, everything is turn-based, and you will have a huge range of attacks that can inflict status changes, such as poison, confusion. Let's get Pokemon up in here! You can also affect speed, so make sure your enemies have to wait before they can attack, and change their positioning around as well as your own. Every character also has an SP bar for using special moves, and a shield to lessen the damage inflicted that can be improved with gadgets equipped to your team. It is very much party management in every way. But it isn't just ground fights, there are also some really cool, much simpler space battles to be had as well. They centre more around a dice roll. There it is! To determine how many points you have to spend each turn on attacking or healing. They are quick enough to be fun, but mostly don't pose too much of a challenge. To be honest, as a whole, I haven't really experienced massive amounts of challenge through my fighting, but that's probably because I'm a little bit of a grinder. I like to crush my foes. Aside from destroying your enemies, there is not much else for the player to do other than click through the dialogue with the occasional player decision based on class type. But there are a number of different mission types to be unlocked, which can be undertaken at any time, either to have a break from the main story or just to beef up your guys a little bit with some extra money, loot, experience, and overall influence. The game also touts some mods at you that serve as side quests used to unlock other classes to eventually mess with. I like this as a way of it pointing fun perhaps at unlockable DLC. Leading into the narrative, you actually take on the role of the GM, who does have a lot more customizable features, including popular sci-fi themed outfits to choose from. Might be the closest to being Darth Vader you can get. Your friends are dialing in online to test out this new game in which they act as your players to guide through the story. Enslaved by a money-grubbing alien, your team find themselves in the middle of a turf war, leading to their eventual freedom to explore the skies on a strangely high-tech ship of their own. By completing quests and working with various colourful characters throughout the mix of planets and sectors, they will earn credits, or credibility if you will, and become more famously known. But there is something mysterious about your ship, and not just the gutsy AI with a lack of memory. So, time to gather the ancient precursor artifacts known as DICE, and find out what the flarv is going on. Of course, with fame and rare artifacts comes enemies, and each new boss poses more challenge than the last. But this is a very meta game, and the galactic travels and plots are only part of the story. This is very much a game within a game scenario, as your band of bros will have to also contend with trolls and beta warriors interfering with your game server. Of course, a great GM remains unfazed and simply weaves these nuisances into the sci-fi world of the game you're playing. And I found the correlation between the RPG game you are playing but also the real world is seamless and chock full of references and comedic banter. I love the stereotypes you can enlist as your friends, and I had a blast associating them with my own friends. Galaxy of P&P takes a real crack at 2D pixel animation, and it knocks it out of the park. The designs are fantastic, with a ton of detail spliced in. I especially love that whilst within the realm of space, all of your party and GM remain sat at a table at the bottom of the screen to really bring home that feel of classic tabletop gaming from the 90s. Nice little touches are also added in as unlockable bonus items you can equip to your desk that give in-game boosts to money or EXP gained, such as action figures or a box of half a pizza. Although most of the game is in this style, what was interesting is the choice for some 3D animation outside of your spaceship. When gliding around from planet to planet, and also in space confrontations, the design takes to the third dimension. And whilst a little blocky in design, it actually feels like a shout back to the early 3D games of the 90s as well, and ties together surprisingly well. I have seen a number of comments about early crashes in the game, and I was unfortunate to come across one myself. When trying to exit the settings menu, my game froze entirely to the point I had to manually shut it down. But thankfully, it does save automatically very frequently, so I didn't lose any of my playthrough. Other than that though, it has played really well. Loading times are incredibly speedy, aside from moving from one solar system to another, and there can be a small lag in battles when cycling through your team a bit too fast, but nothing game-breaking. It has to be said, the soundtrack is absolutely jamming and gives a real arcade feel to the setting. A great mood setter as track shifts from mellow to beat pounding as a boss fight draws near. Also, some marvellous 16-bit sounds to accompany the animations, rounding off the package wonderfully. So, is there any fun to be had on this starship? Absolutely! I love this game. It does really well in making it feel personal without too much emphasis on appearance. I was surprised how simply naming a character after one of my buddies and choosing a persona similar to their own, yes, we are all gaming stereotypes, I was able to picture them in the game itself. It may sound odd, but I was digging it, and with so many different things you can do to boost your party's standing in the world, there is a lot of personalization to be made. Plus, I have a very basic sense of humor, as I'm sure you're aware of by now, so this game was very punny, funny to me. It is light-hearted and full of gags, as well as general nostalgia in some sneaky quotes if you can spot them. I was a 90s kid myself, so I can relate to a lot of what you see in this game, and I am a fan. Coming back down to earth to round this off, Galaxy of Pen and Paper is brilliant. I haven't played anything quite like it before, and although I've not yet taken part in any real D&D games, I can see it being something along these lines. With so many different things to check out and the speed and momentum of the game, it is easy to sink hours without even noticing, and still wanting more. I think there may be the potential for quests to get a bit stale, as the story is quite cliche in part, But this is all part of the charm, further adding to the homemade RPG vibe it's creating. With much pleasure, I am awarding Galaxy of P&P a worth a buy score. For £10 you can experience this gem, and with the quirky style and personal touches, there are many ways to play. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this review of Galaxy of Pen and Paper. If you want to see more from us here at GameCast, please like and subscribe, and keep watching for more awesome gaming content. And if you want to see more from me, there are links in the description below to my channel, Orange Lightning Playzone, and all other social spaces I frequent. So, take care for now. Bye!
What's up everybody, my name is Mike and welcome to another GameCast review. In this video I'll be taking a look at Resident Evil 5 for PlayStation 4.
Should have seen it coming.
Resident Evil 4 is often considered one of the greatest games of all time. It popularized the over-the-shoulder view, has excellent pacing, and contains an atmosphere that's unmatched even in games today. While Resident Evil 4 is usually spoken of very highly, detractors and even some fans of the series will claim it's not a real Resident Evil game because of its focus on action rather than horror. I personally love the focus on action since I'm not a fan of the horror genre, and I've also never played the original 3. The gunplay and action is what got me interested in Resident Evil 4 in the first place. But the first game in the series I actually played and beat is Resident Evil 5. Developed and published by Capcom, Resident Evil 5 was released for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in March 2009. It was released for PC in September of that same year. For this review I played the PlayStation 4 version, which was released in June 2016. It's also available for Xbox One. The PS4 and Xbox One versions of Resident Evil 5 contain all of the content from the original release, along with all of the DLC. This includes the Lost in Nightmares and Desperate Escape campaigns. The game runs at 1080p and 60 frames per second. Resident Evil 5 follows in the steps of Resident Evil 4, but this time with the added feature of co-op, which is a major element of the gameplay. But the real question is Resident Evil 5 as good as its predecessor, or does it fall short? Well, let's take a look.
We got company.
They don't let have, do they?
As you may or may not know, even though I enjoyed Resident Evil 4, I didn't like the controls. I do not like tank controls, never did. Resident Evil 5 employs tank controls with added mobility. What does that mean? That means you can strafe when not aiming or shooting. And if you don't want to call it tank controls, then I don't know what to call it. I'll call it stiff movement. Controlling the characters feels very stiff, as did controlling Leon in Resident Evil 4. And just like the previous game, you can still turn 180 degrees at will, context-sensitive actions are required to do things like push buttons and pull levers, among other things, and once again the gameplay revolves around the controls. During specific encounters you can take cover behind objects and even fire at enemies from cover, but this game isn't really meant to be played like a cover shooter, and the cover mechanics just feel clunky. Quick time events do return as well, and they even occur during cutscenes, so you should always be prepared. You're going to be killing a ton of enemies in this game. Learning how to conserve ammo and accurate aiming are probably the two most important things for survival. Shoot an enemy in the head to stagger him, and then approach him to perform a melee attack to possibly knock him down. You now have the option to perform another melee attack on a downed enemy, although you can still whip out your knife and start slicing if you want to. That seems to be a great strategy for saving ammo. However, you need to be aware of your surroundings, and sometimes when you're getting overrun, shooting and running away is the best course of action. Resident Evil 5 places a massive focus on co-op, whether you play solo with Sheva as an AI partner, online with another player, or in local split screen, Sheva will always tag along with you, and if she dies it's an automatic failure. Yeah, you need to be mindful of her health, what weapons she carries, and her ammo. However, having someone back you up is one of the upsides. For example, if you're about to die, Sheva can resuscitate you, even if she doesn't have a health item. If you're getting attacked up close and personal, if she's close by, she'll perform a melee attack to free you from enemy clutches, and you can do the same if she's being attacked. She's also not too bad when it comes to combat. She's a beast with a rifle, pulling off headshots in rapid succession. However, not all is great with the Sheva AI. She tends to eat through ammo rather quickly, and when she's equipped with a pistol, I found it rare that she would switch to any other weapon. Sometimes she'll get in your way, but luckily you have the option to turn off AI reaction, which I guess is friendly fire? I'm not sure, I always kept it off. Playing with an actual human partner is the way to go, but the sad thing is you don't have the option to play through this as a solo character. However, Resident Evil 5 offers some of the best co-op gameplay I've ever experienced. You really do need to communicate who you're playing with, decide who's going to carry what weapons, and share resources appropriately. Jeremy and I eventually found it best for each of us to carry weapons that don't require us to share the same ammo. For example, he was designated the primary long-range character and would carry a pistol and sniper rifle. I would carry a shotgun and assault rifle. This way neither of us had to share the same ammo, and certain situations would call for different weapons, so communication was key. It was really fun. The game likes to throw the co-op mechanic in your face constantly, with way too many actions that require both Chris and Sheva. Even if you're with AI Sheva, you can't just walk through some doors or activate an elevator, or do anything that would take you to the next area. Why she can't just teleport to the next area, I don't know. Sheva has to be with you so you can leave together, which gets annoying. Luckily, you can always call her to your location. Some areas require Chris and Sheva to split up, and when playing with the AI, these areas always make me nervous because if she ends up in the dying state, there's no way to get to her and you'll have to wait out her death before trying again. AI Sheva also likes to use any health items when either of you lose a certain amount of health. But if you don't want her to do that, you'll need to remove any health items she's carrying, but also risk her dying if you get split up. Chris and Sheva can give each other items if they're in close proximity, and you can actually spray your partner and it will heal both of you at once, which is nice if you want to conserve healing items. Managing your equipment is another key aspect of the gameplay and basic survival. Both Chris and Sheva have 9 inventory slots for equipment, and everything but money, treasure, and special items needed to progress take up 1 inventory slot. Unlike Resident Evil 4, there is no carrying case, and you cannot increase your carrying capacity. There's also no merchants. In between chapters, when you die or restart from a checkpoint, you can access a shop to buy and sell weapons, first aid sprays, and even vests, among other things. I don't like how melee and bulletproof vests take up an inventory slot, and they also don't reflect visually on the character. Although one of the things I do like about this game is the inventory. You can actually store items for use later. You can access your current equipment at any time during gameplay, however this time it doesn't pause the game so you can still get attacked, which becomes frustrating. You just need to be very aware of your surroundings. You can upgrade weapons to make them more powerful with things like better firepower, reload speeds, ammo capacity, and stuff like that. One of the biggest downsides to the inventory system is how it handles 2 players, or at least 2 players playing in split screen since I didn't play online. Player 2 can't buy or sell items or even upgrade weapons. In fact, to upgrade a weapon for the second player, that player needs to remove the weapon from their current inventory so it ends up in the inventory storage. Then player 1 can upgrade it. It just seems unnecessary. I guess taking purchasing options away from the second player is a way to emphasize coordination, but it just seems like a convoluted way to do things. Killing enemies and destroying objects will usually reward you with money, ammo, or herbs. Killing tougher enemies normally provides you with valuable treasure, and treasure is also scattered throughout the environments. Just like in Resident Evil 4, some breakable objects contain snakes that will attack you, so you'll need to be careful. You can sell treasure for money, and the money is used to buy items from the shop and upgrade weapons. There's 2 types of herbs, green and red, and herbs can still be combined for more powerful effects. A green herb can provide you with a small amount of health, or you can combine it with another green herb for more health. Combining a green and red herb creates a spray that will restore your health completely. Red herbs on their own are useless. The developers also decided to remove the yellow herbs, and you can no longer permanently increase your health. Scattered throughout the environments are BSAA emblems that you can shoot and act as a form of collectibles. At the end of each chapter, you're scored based on accuracy, enemies routed, deaths, and clear time. You're also given a ranking based on your performance along with points. You can use the points you've accumulated to purchase bonus features. These include things like character costumes, figures, and even visual filters. Some of these features are unlocked by completing the game or completing it on a specific difficulty mode, and a good majority of them are unlocked by how many BSAA emblems you've shot. There's 30 emblems total, and they're really well hidden. They're never placed in front of your face, and I think the first time I completed the game, I only managed to find and destroy 1. They're hidden in the most obscure places. Some of the unlockable bonus features include infinite ammo for your guns, however there's a catch. To unlock infinite ammo for a weapon, you need to upgrade it fully, and then purchase the infinite ammo option from the bonus features menu. After playing through the game 3 times, I was only able to unlock infinite ammo for 5 weapons, so you will have to grind for treasure to purchase upgrades and go for the best scores possible in chapters for the most points. Playing with infinite ammo is extremely fun, but also removes much of the challenge. With all of the unlockable content, Resident Evil 5 offers plenty of replay value. The gunplay in Resident Evil 5 is just as satisfying as it is in Resident Evil 4, if not more so. Pulling off a well-placed headshot is very satisfying, although you still need to watch out for the parasite that may emerge from the neck of headless enemies. I really love the arsenal here. There's multiple types of pistols, submachine guns, assault rifles, sniper rifles, shotguns. There's a grenade launcher that can fire different types of rounds like explosive, electric, and even acid. And the rocket launcher also returns but can only be fired once. It's best used on bosses. Explosives can be acquired throughout the environments, and these include hand grenades, incendiary grenades, flash grenades for disorienting enemies, and even proximity bombs. There's also special weapons that cannot be stored in your inventory, and are usually for specific situations like boss battles. These weapons include a turret, flamethrower, and even a satellite laser. Now, there's all different types of enemies and deadly creatures to blow away in Resident Evil 5. Once again, the enemies here are not zombies, but are infected with a parasite or virus. Most of the standard enemies will run and charge at you, some throw things, including explosives, some carry shields, and others are equipped with armor. Early in the game, you'll encounter enemies that can fly and infected dogs that can jump you. Enemies carrying chainsaws are still annoying and can kill you instantly if they make contact. And late in the game, you'll encounter big dudes carrying chain guns, but they don't show up as often as they did in Resident Evil 4. Some enemies will transform into a hideous creature when they take enough damage, and most of the tougher enemy types are all bullet sponges. There's an enemy called the Reaper, which is probably the creepiest enemy in the game. It's also very deadly since it can kill you instantly if you get too close. There are quite a few boss battles in this game, and if you don't conserve ammo, some of these bosses can be really tedious. If you have the rocket launcher equipped, I know you can take out at least 2 of them very quickly, but on your first playthrough there's no way to know when these bosses will appear. Overall, all the bosses are well designed, grotesque, and each require different strategies to defeat. Just like the bosses in the previous game, defeating them requires a combination of shooting, context-sensitive actions, and sometimes quick-time events. Both the Resident Evil 5 and Desperate Escape campaigns have you fending off most of the same enemies. Lost in Nightmares, however, focuses more on atmosphere and puzzle solving rather than combat and introduces maybe 1 or 2 new enemy types. And those are the only enemies you'll encounter. This campaign seems to emphasize running away and utilizing the environment to kill enemies. From what I gather, some fans of the older games really appreciate Lost in Nightmares due to its shift from action to horror, but I really didn't care for it myself. You can probably beat it in less than an hour or 2. The Desperate Escape campaign has a huge focus on action, but I also don't care for this campaign either because it just feels like horde mode throughout the entire experience, which can become frustrating. The enemies never seem to stop coming, and it ends with you fighting off waves of enemies requiring you to stay alive until the timer reaches 0. It's terrible. Now there's 4 difficulty modes: Amateur, Normal, Veteran, and Professional, which is only unlocked after completing the game on Veteran. Completing the game once unlocks New Game Plus, where you can play through the game again on any difficulty with your current equipment. It also unlocks the ability to play as Sheva. Another nice feature is that you can play through any already completed chapter from the Chapter Select screen. Now, Resident Evil 4 employed a feature known as Adaptive Difficulty, where the game would adjust the difficulty based on your performance. The basic idea being if you die a lot, the game will take the proper measures to help you along. If you're blowing through areas without a problem, the game will make things a bit harder for you. The adaptive difficulty was excellent at keeping you moving forward, while at the same time keeping you on the edge of your seat throughout the entire game. If Resident Evil 5 utilizes adaptive difficulty, it does it poorly. When playing in split screen, we did run out of ammo here quite often. Yes, I admit we probably did manage inventory incorrectly among other things, but having no ammo late in the game is very frustrating. Boss battles usually supply ammo, but we spent a good hour, maybe hour and a half, trying to take down the second to last boss with basically no ammo. It was ludicrous. I think having a second player just adds to the stress of worrying about ammo and survival. Managing equipment for 2 players is probably the reason we ran out of ammo. I'm going to say poor inventory management and wasted shots that ate through ammo was our ultimate downfall. The Mercenaries is a returning game mode from Resident Evil 4, now titled The Mercenaries United. Once again, the objective is to kill as many enemies as possible before the evac chopper arrives for a high score. You can play this mode solo, online with a partner, or in split screen with a friend. You can select one of multiple characters, each with their own set of weapons. The weapon sets make each character unique in a way, and your preferred character will probably depend on what weapons you prefer to use. I love using Tribal Sheva because her crossbow can kill most enemies in one shot. Achieving a high score is all about killing multiple enemies in a row to accumulate combos for big points. Throughout the stages are plenty of herbs, ammo, grenades, and even bonus items to extend your time, and you also want to be on the lookout for combo items, which earn you 1,000 points for each combo kill for a limited time. If you end up in the dying state, you can actually resuscitate yourself. The Mercenaries United also includes a variant of the solo mode titled No Mercy, which just contains a shit ton more enemies. No Mercy is actually quite difficult, and leaves you with basically no breathing room ever. There's several stages to choose from, and memorizing where items are in each, specifically bonus and combo time items, can be very helpful in achieving the highest possible score. The enemies will always keep coming, and tougher enemies will spawn in as you keep blasting more and more away, making things more difficult. I found the Mercenaries United to be much more forgiving here than the Mercenaries mode in Resident Evil 4, and ultimately I had a lot more fun with it here.
Welcome to Africa. My name is Sheva Alama.
Chris Redfield.
The main campaign follows a returning Resident Evil protagonist, Chris Redfield, now a member of the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, abbreviated BSAA. As soon as the game starts, he's introduced to his new partner, Sheva Alomar. Both are tasked with stopping Ricardo Irving from selling a dangerous bioweapon. Eventually, Chris and Sheva both uncover a plot to release a new strain of the progenitor virus called Ouroboros. On your journey, you'll encounter both new and returning characters, and you can also find files and documents scattered throughout the environments that provide backstory and lore. The voice acting is decent overall, although some characters and dialogue seem over the top. Unlike Resident Evil 4, the dialogue is more serious than cheesy, which is either good or bad depending on your preference, I guess. I have to point out Chris's appearance, which is just ridiculous. He's all buff, and I guess he's supposed to look badass, but his head is too small or something. It doesn't seem proportional to the rest of his body. Throughout the campaign, Chris has several flashbacks about an incident at the Spencer estate which took place before the events of the main campaign. These flashbacks detail what happened between Chris and his old partner, Jill Valentine, and series antagonist Albert Wesker. The Lost in Nightmares campaign is actually about these events. In Lost in Nightmares, you play as Chris and are partnered up with Jill. The Desperate Escape campaign feels more like an extension to the main storyline. You play as Jill and are partnered up with Josh, a character introduced in the main campaign. The story here starts towards the end of the main storyline, and it shows how Jill and Josh escape the Tricell facility. Now, the main campaign takes place in Africa and has a good amount of environmental variety. You'll battle through villages, marshes, and even an oil tanker. Overall, I would say Resident Evil 5 is creepy but not scary. It lacks the same kind of impact Resident Evil 4 made, and just doesn't have the same feel. The horror elements and sense of tension just aren't here. Outside of the Lost in Nightmares campaign, Resident Evil 5 places a much bigger focus on action than its predecessor, and it's just not as atmospheric and immersive, at least not in the same way. In many ways, it feels like Resident Evil 4 with a new coat of paint. But if you were expecting a scary experience with a consistent feeling of tension and suspense, you'll probably be disappointed. But think of it like comparing the original Alien film to its sequel, Aliens. The former is a straight-up horror movie, and the latter is more of an action movie. I personally prefer the latter. Visually, Resident Evil 5 looks pretty good for a game released in 2009. You can tell it doesn't look like anything released recently, but it still holds up. The texture work is good, little effects like blood splatter and enemies exploding look great, and character and weapon models show a good amount of detail. And once again, the reload animations look sexy. All weapons minus the knife are equipped with a laser sight for aiming. However, when playing in split screen, this game employs a dual full screen feature rather than one split full screen. Unless you have a massive TV, the laser sight can be a bit small when playing in split screen, sometimes making it a challenge to aim accurately. Resident Evil 5 is a very cinematic experience, especially when talking about the cutscenes. I just love the camera work and how it's all presented, and some of the more action-packed cutscenes are really enjoyable to watch. Overall, the game lacks in the color department and just has a washed-out appearance, even if using any of the unlockable visual filters. Now, I think it's safe to say I'm a fan of the audio design. The weapons sound powerful, making them feel extremely satisfying to shoot. I love the sound of the equipment shuffling whenever your character moves. Little things like that are always a nice touch. The music is full of orchestral scores that match the cinematic style of the game. I really enjoyed the song heard throughout the final chapter. On the technical side, the game ran pretty smooth throughout. The frame rate rarely dipped in single player, however, it would noticeably dip when playing in the Mercenaries No Mercy mode. It also dipped more frequently when playing in split screen, but it never hindered the gameplay. Overall, I would say this is an excellent port. I played through Resident Evil 5 3 times, so I can't say I didn't enjoy it. Despite it lacking the same impact, pacing, and immersive atmosphere of its predecessor, I think it's actually a great shooter. I think I would say I enjoyed it more than Resident Evil 4. However, that's because I prefer action over horror. Now, I can understand why fans may not think as highly of Resident Evil 5 compared to 4, because it really doesn't do anything new, and lacks many subtle qualities that made 4 so excellent. But for me, I love the arsenal, I love the action, and I love how the weapons feel. Just like Resident Evil 4, the gameplay is designed around the controls, and I simply don't like the controls, even if you can strafe when not aiming now. That doesn't make it a bad game or even bad controls. The controls work and are responsive, it's just that the character movement feels stiff, and I don't like that. But if you enjoyed the gameplay of Resident Evil 4, I don't see why you wouldn't enjoy Resident Evil 5. Ultimately, I would recommend Resident Evil 5. It's definitely worth a buy, and considering you can get it for pretty cheap now, I don't see a reason not to check this out if you think at the very least it looks interesting. It's an action-packed experience that's best played in co-op, but is still very enjoyable solo. I really would prefer to play this as a solo character when talking about the single player, but this does have some of the best co-op gameplay I have ever experienced. This game also contains plenty of replay value. With all of the unlockable content, the 2 other campaigns, and the Mercenaries United mode, there's plenty of reasons to return. In fact, to see and unlock everything, you're basically required to play through the game multiple times. Would I say Resident Evil 5 is better than Resident Evil 4? That really depends on what you prefer. I enjoyed 5 more, but I can see why people prefer 4. I do admit, Resident Evil 5 does not do anything that we haven't already seen in 4. There's a few additions that make things more convenient, but the core gameplay is relatively the same. Still, Resident Evil 5 is a great shooter, and if you can enjoy or even tolerate the controls like me, you're in for a pretty good time.
It's over.
Yes. Finally.
I hope this review proved helpful. Be sure to stick around for more quality GameCast content, including the latest gaming news, Let's Plays, podcasts, and even more reviews. You can check us out on social media with the links below, and be sure to check out my channel, Gaming Pastime, where you can find new game reviews released every week. My name is Mike, and I thank you for watching.
I'm Mark, and welcome to another GameCast review. Today I'll be reviewing Splatoon 2, now available for the Nintendo Switch. Let's start things off by talking about gameplay. Splatoon 2, much like the original game, is a simple third-person shooter that uses ink-based weaponry instead of actual firearms. The unique twist is that all of your weapons leave a trail of ink in their wake. You can then morph into a squid and travel through this ink, increasing your movement speed and healing you at the same time. The original game was great, but was starved for content at launch. Splatoon 2 is pretty much the first game with all of its updates already included, plus a few more bells and whistles. The single-player campaign starts out in a fairly similar fashion to the first game, but quickly picks up as it introduces the player to new weapons and gameplay concepts. Each stage has a similar structure and goal, hitting a mix between Super Mario Galaxy and Ratchet & Clank. There are multiple collectibles hidden in each stage, and replaying old stages is encouraged as once a new weapon is unlocked, it can be used in previous areas. The new Splat Dualies are a highlight as they speed up the action considerably and give a new layer to gunplay. The new boss battles are twists on older concepts, and if nothing else they are visual spectacles. Unfortunately, some of the new mechanics are exclusive to the campaign, which is a bit annoying. The original Splatoon's multiplayer concept was ridiculous, a third-person shooter where your goal isn't to rack up the most kills. Instead, your goal was to cover the most area with ink. It didn't sound like it would work, and I was very skeptical, especially since it was a new Nintendo IP. But much like most experimental concepts from Nintendo, it just works. I had a blast with the original, and the same is true for its sequel. The majority of your time will most likely be spent in Turf War, a 4v4 mode where each team aims to cover the most area in their team's ink. It's a great mode that is vastly improved with communication between teammates. Unfortunately, Splatoon 2 is very user-unfriendly in this department. There is no inbuilt voice chat option, and the small commands you can call out are far too general. You are also unable to change your loadout between matches and must exit back to the main matchmaking screen. This leads to many battles being fought with an awkward team composition. It's here that the game stumbles, as in all multiplayer modes, communication and coordination is often the key to victory. Most matches then become a trial and guesswork as you choose a direction and hope your team is competent. This is especially true in the ranked battle modes, which play on traditional Capture the Flag and King of the Hill modes. New to Splatoon 2 is Salmon Run. This is a co-op horde-style mode that tasks players with surviving waves of increasingly difficult salmon-esque monsters. Each round you cycle to a new weapon, and consecutive play brings new challenges, like boss swarms, shrinking arenas, and drastic changes in the weather. It's another mode that could really use better communication options, as some bosses require coordination between 2 or more players. It's also a timed event, which is strange. Much like the other modes, Salmon Run will swap its map, weapons, and rewards at specific intervals. However, unlike the other modes, Salmon Run is only available on certain days, which is a shame as it's a lot of fun and gave a good break from the rest of the content. Next up, let's talk about the story. Splatoon 2 takes place sometime after the events of the first game. The Great Zapfish has gone missing once again, and it's up to you to find out what's going on. Your character is silent, so it's up to your new mentor Mari, one of the pop idol Squid Sisters from the first game, to guide you through the narrative. The game doesn't take itself too seriously, even directly referencing that the goal of the game is the same as the first. The dialogue is loaded with puns, but sometimes it's hard to focus as a few chunks of narrative and guidance will occur during gameplay. The new idols that replaced Callie and Mari, Pearl and Mariner, don't play any real role in the story, but they are the faces that greet you each time you boot up the game. They carry more varied personalities and designs than their predecessors, and if the first test Splatfest was any indication, then one idol is definitely more popular than the other. Next up, let's talk about presentation. Splatoon 2 isn't the prettiest game out there, but it's loaded with style. Characters, weapons, and environments are all brimming with personality, and each little detail has some small story to tell. Each weapon and piece of clothing has been lovingly detailed, and very rarely would you find another player wearing the exact same clothes. The sheen and splash effects of your ink are great, however there's usually very little time to admire it in the heat of combat. The single player stages are complex, and the second half of the game really kicks it up a notch. The multiplayer maps have a beautiful symmetry to them, and they're great playgrounds to mess around in. The main multiplayer hub, Inkopolis, is well realised and filled with small details. The different shopkeepers each have a fun quirk and charming design. There are user-generated posts used as graffiti and scattered throughout multiplayer matches. The user posts are by far the highlight of the hub, as they range from gameplay tips, fun memes, beautiful fan art, and loads of anime references. The sound effects and music are just as good as the original, with some really satisfying splat and splashing sounds. The slightly more hip-hop soundtrack really suits the new entry and idol pair, but I do miss Callie and Mari from time to time. Splatoon 2 is great fun, and the Switch is the perfect home for it. It always felt like a pick-up-and-play sort of game, and now it is. I grinded out the first 10 levels in multiplayer before I even realised how long I had been playing, and I still wanted more. Each time I start up the game, I'm treated to a happy and enthusiastic community. I only wish I could interact better during an actual match. At times, Splatoon 2 feels like a sequel, and at others, it's more like an expansion or definitive edition. It's a vast improvement over the first game, and I'm sure it'll have a similar longevity. Its matchmaking could still use some work, and its communication options need a complete overhaul. But it isn't exactly the most competitive of shooters, and even my losses were fun. If you own a Switch, then Splatoon 2 is definitely a must-buy from me. Stay tuned to GameCast for more great gaming content. You can also find GameCasts and my social media links in the description below. Until next time, don't get cooked, stay off the hook.
Late to the broadcast and miss your favorite show? Fear not, we've got you covered. The GameCast YouTube channel contains all of your past and present shows on demand for you to view at a time of your convenience. The space also serves as a portal of sorts for you to discover what your favorite GameCast personalities are creating outside of the GameCast world. Simply click the link below for the past and present on demand, with a side bonus of content from your favorite GameCast personalities. Stop right there! Don't touch that dial, and don't change the channel. Pocket Edition is up next. This small form factor show isn't afraid to unpack the biggest talking points of the video game industry. Join your host Sully and other various GameCast personalities as they pull apart and put back together what captured their interest this week, and, in some cases, your childhood too.
Welcome one and all to episode 20 of Pocket Edition. I am your host Sully, and today I'm joined by Joe Chip. He is our guest for this episode from the Joe Chip channel, and you might recognize him from Chip Chat, his podcast. We'll link that down below in the description. And of course, I'm joined by one of my many salty, trusty sidekicks in Count Fracula. How are we today, guys?
Fine.
Good, thank you.
Fantastic.
Salty.
Salty, as always. Plenty of salt for those icy roads, Count.
You need them round here, God.
Oh, we do, yeah. It's very... Yes, we've had a lot of snow in Britain at the moment, and the papers are going mad because of it.
I saw a Facebook post today about one of my ex's relatives that lives over there saying the first person to complain about the heat is going to get punched. Is that completely not relevant at the moment at all?
I don't know. They're calling the storm the Beast from the East, and it's completely unnecessary.
Wait,
it's like this is mild snow.
So this is actually a cool front. It's not heat.
Some guy was saying, like, I've just stuck my hand into the snow and it's come up to me knuckles. And making a big deal out of it on the telly the other day. I'm like, for crying out loud.
You should have seen that, like, early December we had snow in the Midlands, and that was sort of like up to your elbow deep if you put your hand in it.
Damn.
That was quite deep. This is like just a sprinkling. It's fine.
Wow.
The best one for me was all the stuff about, it's a red warning in Scotland, and I'm sure it is in some parts of Scotland.
Yeah, because it's probably much worse in Scotland because they're further north than us.
But the best bit there, though, was that I went onto Facebook this morning, and one of my friends who lives right up in the Highlands of Scotland posted a picture of what it's like outside our house today, and it was literally no snow. It was literally nothing.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had snow. All we have down here is elbow, knee-deep kangaroo shit. That's about it.
Yeah, I think I'll take the snow over that.
And large spiders.
Large, deadly spiders. Fantastic. Anyway, let's jump into the episode because we're going to keep it short, sharp, and tidy today. 4 count, so he can go off and venture and play in the snow, whatever the fuck he was doing today. I can't remember.
No, I'm collecting a car.
Collecting a car. There we go. But today we're talking about video game demos. Do they, or I guess we know they're not around anymore in a traditional sense, but could they or should they be? Count, do you want to open this one up for us?
So you must know, if you've been into games for any sensible amount of time, unless you're one of those filthy young people, that video games used to have things called demos, or indeed demo discs. Who remembers those?
Oh, I remember
Absolutely.
those.
I used to have I used to get quite a few for the PS2 when that was still a thing, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing.
To get him out of Serial, that was the shit.
Yes, I think I got one out of Serial that had like a Bionicle game with it, and I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing, because I was really into Bionicles at the time.
Or you buy the magazines, like your favourite video game magazine, you always get the demo disc for the PS2. Oh, that was good. Those were the days. And the replay value on those demos, I don't even understand how you used to play them so much either.
No, it's weird, isn't it? I'm now looking at Bionicle the game. Oh, it didn't get good reviews. Aww.
Oh, they destroyed you on the set.
It's another shit game you liked to play when you were young. What's that fucking car one?
Oh, Road Trip Adventure.
Road Trip Adventure does not hold
something
up.
like that. Oh, that game doesn't hold up. A game that I am playing at the moment, though, that does hold up is Pokemon Ruby, because I have it. I'm playing it on Game Boy Advance.
Nice.
It's funny because I bought, they did the re-release of Crystal on 3DS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they've done, they did Gold and Silver late last year, and they've just done Crystal. I bought the boxed version specifically because it's just a box with a code in it. But I want the box because I'm just a shameless capitalist pig.
Modern gaming in a nutshell. There you go.
And I was just like, yes, I now have this lovely box. Wait a minute, I'm going to play Pokemon Ruby now for no reason.
Nice.
I've not even touched the 3DS version of Crystal. So I'm just playing this one instead. And also, fuck trying to find a Feebas in this fucking game. Would you like to know the method? I'm going really off topic here. Would you like to know the method for finding a Feebas in Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald?
Go on then, tell us
By
the
all
method
means.
for finding a Feebas. Go on.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the thing. Back to demos.
Demos.
Yeah.
Do we want them back? Do we want the classic demo back? And why do we want it back? And what's wrong with the existing way we consume all these betas and all this crazy shit that's going on these days?
Well, betas kind of are demos, aren't they, in a way? Except for...
In a sense, yes.
They are, but they're only accessible for a limited time.
Yeah. And we're also getting the game previews and all that as well. And I'm not sure I really like that because they've partly replaced demos as well in a way, but you're being expected to pay for them. So in effect, you're being a beta tester that you're paying for. These aren't finished items that you're getting.
Yeah, because you have to pre-order the game and get access to the beta. Yay!
Yeah. I think I am a fan of bringing back the classic demo. I appreciated the classic demo for me personally because I don't necessarily have an issue with the kind of form that betas come out in. I do take issue when you get these betas where it's like this ongoing development cycle. You've already paid for the game and the game just never seems to ever freaking launch.
Yeah, they never come out of beta, do they?
I think, release the beta free, play it upon launch. If you want to continue playing it, buy it. I think that's fair. But for me, the reason why I don't ever try games before I buy in beta form or preview form these days is because I'm afraid of getting my fill of the game before the game's actually finished.
Well, isn't that what happened to Max with Sea of Thieves?
Probably, yeah.
Because he tried the beta. He tried when it was like they had a preview build of it at whatever convention he went to last year, and he tried it, and then he tried the beta again when it was out like last month or whatever, and he was really disappointed because basically nothing had changed in a year.
And that's another thing, you want to remember when the demos used to come out, you'd get them for free, and there'd be disclaimers saying this may not be representative of the final product.
Yeah.
And you get that in a beta, I guess, but it's such a drawn out, long process, and you've already paid for it, and there's not necessarily any guarantees at the other end that it will end up or shape up to be the product that it was initially being pitched. But there's nothing worse in my mind than buying a beta and just getting my fill before it's finished. I feel like you're really missing out if that happens, and that's happened to me in the past with games where I've just had my fill and I never went back to it. I never played the finished product because I just burnt out on it. And did I get my money's worth? Absolutely. But it just draws away from the kind of experience in my mind, and I tend to avoid betas and previews like the plague now. But if we had a demo, yeah, absolutely. I used to download demos all the time through the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation, all the time. It was a great little snapshot and a way to just taste and sample a game. You'd get one multiplayer map or you'd get one mission, and that was it. I felt that was a very reasonable way to taste a game. But, we all know these days that betas are less of a way to demo a game and try a game. They're more about a model and monetizing a game.
Yeah, because it seems to be more that they're testing the monetization. Because do you remember the Star Wars Battlefront beta?
Yes.
That was basically a test of the loot box system, more than anything.
Right on the nail with that. Yeah, exactly. It's more about sucking you into the game now and actually seeing what they can get out of you, rather than actually giving you a taste of what the actual game is about. I mean, if you go back, I think I mentioned this before we started recording, if you go back and you look at Doom, when they released Doom, you got the first level, I think it was, and they were giving that out away free. They were encouraging you to copy it. That's why it was called shareware.
Yeah,
you could copy it, share it, give it to your friends. And the marketing effect of that was great, but you actually had a large portion of the finished game to play. And going back to what you were saying, Sully, what we're getting now is a portion of an unfinished game. And so by the time the game comes out, you have this thing, you've played the game, but you've played a kind of broken, half-assed version of it, and you're probably for me, often, I do the same as you, I avoid them like the plague a lot of the time, because I'm often quite jaded by the time the final game comes out. And does it actually give you an idea of what the final game's going to be like? It might, but sometimes it doesn't. I mean, was it the game We Happy Few? I mean, look at the way that's changed over time. I mean, yeah, exactly. When I first heard about We Happy Few, I was quite excited by it. The concept looked great.
I know, the E3 presentation blew my mind. I was just like, oh my god, that looks amazing. And then it came into early access and I just cried.
Yeah.
What changed with that game? Because I've missed all of this. I saw the demo and it looked really cool, and this is all I know about it.
The E3 presentation presented it as a sort of Bioshock-like, story-driven, amazing thing.
This one where they're taking drugs, right, to be happy all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's sort of worlds all corrupted around them, but they could have done something really interesting with that and made a really nice story with it. What they've done instead, they made a survival crafting game, but it's also a really shit survival crafting game. Like, all the mechanics are really sort of broken, like the hunger and thirst mechanics tick down so quickly, it's stupid. And not only that, it's now been bought out by, I think it's Gearbox.
Gearbox, yeah.
So they've certainly been bought out by a AAA company, and they've AAA-ified the game with like season pass and special deluxe editions. Not only that, a deluxe edition that one particular deluxe edition that doesn't include the game.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Talk about AAA in a game.
Experience.
Yeah. To be fair, they did that with Call of Duty recently. Like, they had a special edition of Call of Duty that didn't include the fucking game.
The first time I think I noticed that in a big way was what happened with the latest version of Hitman, and they did a special edition.
Did they do
of
that with Hitman?
Yeah, they brought out a special edition of Hitman.
What?
This was right at the beginning because they brought out a special edition of Hitman. I made a video about this ages ago, and you could pay like £100 for it, and it had a statue and all these other things. But the Hitman game was actually episodic. So when you bought this special edition, you just got, I think, the first episode that you could download. So there was no game in the box, and that was the first time that really came to my attention. And I just,
the way they did that Hitman game in particular, really weird though.
It was really weird, but luckily it was really good.
Yeah,
so I've heard. I really want to get it at this point because they've finished the first season of it. What I like though is because IO Interactive separated from Squeenix. Squeenix actually let them buy the Hitman, or they gave them the Hitman franchise, so that IO can still make Hitman games.
That was a really nice story, that one.
That was
I remember it was like, oh no, and then it actually turned out good. So we might actually get some
Props
more
to
Hitman
Square.
games in the future. Yeah, they did something good for a change, rather than what they did with Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Cough. Back on topic though, I think demos are a good thing. Overall, especially when it comes to, you get a full game that's released and you go, I don't know if I like that game. I want to try it first. And I think easy access to a demo, obviously I have no statistics to back this up, this is my personal opinion, might help reduce things like piracy. Because a lot of people justify piracy by going, I'm going to try the game before I buy it. And for a lot of people who pirate games, I'm sure that's actually the case. They'll try a game, they'll go, oh, I like that, I'll put some money towards the developer.
Hey, I've done it before.
I'm sure a lot of people have.
This is my personal experience, that I actually do feel that if a game's good, you should buy it. But I have pirated games in the past for that reason, because I wanted to try it and I wasn't going to shell out a load of money for a game and then find I hated it. So I've actually pirated. Exactly. Yeah, I've pirated games first. I haven't done it for years, but I've pirated games first, and then
we're in a situation now where we don't need to do that anyway.
Well, yeah, a lot of the time, but
things like Steam refunds exist now.
Yeah, exactly, and even on the Xbox now, you can refund the games as well, the digital games and stuff.
Max has an interesting story about refunds. If you watch the latest newscast, which
I'll have to watch that
live on YouTube. but yeah, so the thing is though, I think demos are actually starting to make a comeback now.
I was going to say, that'd be my next question. How or when do you think they could make a comeback? Like, what do you attribute this comeback to?
I started with indie games in the last year or two.
The latest Resident Evil had a demo as well, which is really good.
Yeah, the thing is, I think a lot of indie games over the last year or two have been putting demos out, and they were advertising this, like going, hey, look at us, we're amazing. We actually put demos with our games so you can try them.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I know. And now, because I've been looking at the Hitman store page because I'm interested in buying it, and they have a demo. Could it be that the industry is opening its eyes to the benefits of things like a demo?
Well, it shows confidence, doesn't it? It shows confidence in your product.
Hey, we probably made quite a good game. Try it, see what you think.
It's like the exact opposite of not allowing review copies, isn't it? It's like, hey, everybody can have a look at this. You know?
The weirdest thing about that, the weirdest thing with like restricting review copies was when they did it to Doom. Like everything Bethesda does. It's like, we were all like, oh god, Doom's going to be shit. And it turned out to be an amazing game. It's like, well, why did you bother doing that then?
Yeah.
I think they must have been worried about it on some level.
And I think they were probably worried about it because of the reaction to the demo. Or not the demo, the online beta. Because, to be fair, the online's a bit toss. It's not really my thing.
Yeah. Another interesting point as well, which is probably food for thought, is I feel this is another kind of pro and box tick for services like Game Pass. I mean, yeah, you pay your monthly fee, but then there's no risk beyond that of buying games you don't like. You know, you don't need a demo because you can try whatever you like on that service.
True. Yeah, there are elements like that.
Yeah, which is just interesting the way it's kind of all changing. Whether, you know, if that does become the predominant way that we like to play our games and a service like Game Pass, then fantastic. That's cool. It eliminates a lot of risk, I guess.
There's no need for a demo, as
Yeah, a lot of people might argue against demos because you have things like Steam refunds now as well.
But I mean,
and again, that's not true on all platforms though, because Nintendo can't do refunds for shit for no reason.
Nintendo are off the curve on a lot of these things, though, aren't they? Behind the curve, I should say.
Well, yeah, because they've only just worked out that online gaming is a popular thing.
They've just released their first couple of big DLC packs, haven't they, as well? Wasn't everyone giving them crap
Zelda,
about that?
Yeah.
Zelda, they're finally on the
They're doing
DLC
a thing for
pack.
Mario as well, aren't they? Like they're going to do I hope they do. I'd like to see like an extra level pack that they've made after the fact.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, see, that's what it's all about. If you release
the very
extra
big distinction
content,
with DLC is like, it's fine, great, do it. Just make sure it's a thing you've actually made after the fact.
Yeah, that's where season passes are a big con. You're paying up front.
It's like,
for something.
hey, we might make this thing in the future, buy it. Or, hey, we cut this thing out of the game, pay us extra money so that you get it.
Yeah, I made the point, going back to Hitman, I made the point with Hitman that you pay up front. If you pay up front for this game, okay, maybe not with the Hitman game, but down the line in the future, and we're seeing this now with some of these early access games, you pay your money up front and then they never appear, or, you could have a scenario where they end up going bust and then the game never sees the light of day in any form.
Yes, I mean, the thing with early access is, with early access specifically, what you're paying for is the game in its current state. You're not paying for any possible future states of the game. You are paying for what that game is at that exact time of purchase. So the developer owes you nothing by buying that game.
That's a bit difficult for a lot of people though, because the people do get sucked into this idea that they're
yeah, they do. They get sucked into the hey, I'm paying for this game to come out of early access. They don't quite realise that it's not that.
It's not how the model works.
It's the same with Kickstarter, isn't it? People get up in arms about Kickstarter.
But
it's like it's a risk.
Oh my god, this Kickstarter thing.
Yeah, it's the same. You put money on the stock market or whatever. You're not guaranteed to make money from it. It can go down as well as up. It's
exactly,
a risk.
The amount of failed Kickstarters or things that have gone wrong, like Mighty Number 9. But that's a different story entirely, really, for why that went wrong.
But yeah, so I think we're all in agreement. Yay, let's bring back the demos. To wrap us up though, give me your favourite demo ever that you ever played or got out of a cereal box ever.
Doom.
I barely even remember.
Okay, the shareware, but Doom.
Doom for you.
Absolutely Doom. There's no, and I mean the first Doom. It was just amazing.
Yep. OG Doom. Count.
Come back to me. You go first.
Alright, I'll give you mine. I can't actually remember the name of mine. I will find out. I'm determined to find out now. And maybe I'll put a little annotation up on screen. But there was this PS2 demo that I got out of some kind of gaming magazine when I was probably like 10. And all it was this one little multiplayer arena, but there was like these big skyscrapers, and it was kind of like Transformers versus like monsters. And all you'd do it was basically like a beat 'em up game. You'd throw these monsters through like buildings, and you'd collapse the buildings on them. You could climb the buildings. It was endless amounts of fun. So that's my demo. Never ended up buying the full game. That's just my demo. I'm still lost.
I don't know. I don't fucking do demos, really. I know that they're a good thing, but I don't do.
Anything from your childhood? Anything at all? Nothing stuck with you?
I could probably find an old shareware copy of Doom you can have a look at if you like. Send that over to you.
I don't have a DOS PC and a cassette deck.
Have you got a PO box count? We'll get everyone to send in their demo to you.
PO boxes cost money to stay open. I'm not willing to do that until people are sending me like tons of shit, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, you don't want tons of shit. That would be horrible. It sting.
No, you know what's going to happen? All the Gamecast guys will just send you shit that's probably not even demos.
Probably. They'll just send me like, hey, look, I found a twig.
Alex will send you a fucking ziplocked taco or some shit like that.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Shaka will get his revenge.
Oh, that would be the best thing. That really would.
Alright.
Fuck it, the Bionicle demo, that's literally the only one I can actually remember playing. I had loads of demo discs and I can't remember any of them.
Oh, have you still got them? Have you still got the folder?
Oh god, no.
Oh, I was gonna say that'd be sick.
I went through like a purging phase of gaming because like when I was an early teenager, I was like, oh, gaming sucks because I'm an idiot. So I got rid of most of my gaming stuff from when I was young, and I'm slowly reacquiring it.
Crusader. There you go. It was an old top-down shooter, Crusader. Yeah, they do a 2. It's dated now. You can pick it up for about £3.
It sounds it.
It wasn't actually about Crusaders. It was a guy wearing a red sort of armor costume, and you had to go through, and it was like in an industrial area, and you had to shoot sort of mechs and things.
Yeah.
I'd be a bit worried if it was about the Crusade, like you, Joe the atheist, just mowing down.
Or you go around as a Christian, killing loads of people in the Holy Land. Yay!
Joe, that's my favourite demo. Anyway, let's wrap it up. We're going down a pretty dark path now.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. Thank you for joining us again, Joe.
No worries.
Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Hopefully have you on in the near future. As always, guys, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. If you want to see some of the tangents that we had in this episode, Count had a great one about, I don't know, Pokemon shit and rivers and all kinds of crazy shit that went for a while. So we'll be posting that exclusively in our Discord channel because it doesn't quite fit in with the episode. He went down quite the rabbit hole. But as always, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode. Have a good one.